Welcome everyone to tonight's school committee meeting. We are starting a little early. We are going to have an executive session to talk about the superintendent's contract. So we open the meeting, we're in public session right now. We're going to entertain a motion to adjourn from open session into executive session. We will then not be on television for that time, but we are going to come back into open session to do our regular business. We have a full agenda. It's kind of the end of the year, so we've got plenty to talk about. So if you could just bear with us while we go through this business, and we'll be back in short order. So can I entertain a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to adjourn into executive session for the purpose of discussing contract negotiations with non-union personnel with the intent to return to open session upon conclusion. Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. This is a roll call vote. Alex?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darrell?
Aye.
And I say aye as well. All right, thank you. We're now in executive session. Welcome back, everyone. We were in open session for just a couple minutes, and then we had to adjourn to an executive session for the purposes of contract negotiations, which we successfully concluded, and we'll talk more about that later in the meeting. Now we're going to go ahead to our regular agenda and start general business, and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mike, can you give us the Pledge of Allegiance? Help us with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. We have a consent agenda, minutes from May 26, 2016, oath to bills and payroll.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any input on the consent agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay. So we have opportunity here for interested citizens. Anybody that has any business before the school committee is free to come up to the podium. Just tell us who they are, what street they live on, and bring it forward. We are going to talk about budget visioning, and I know that some people saw a posting on Facebook and we're reaching out for that. If you can't stay or don't feel you can stay till, like, what is it, 8:45, we're going to get to that. We have a lot of business tonight. Feel free to get up and talk about it now, and then we'll incorporate that back when we get to the budget visioning. But if you can guts it out, we'd love to have you stay. So anybody that has any public input for the school committee?
Mary Estretta, 7 Colburn Lane. And I have a question about, with the vandalism that happened at the high school a couple of weeks ago, who's going to be responsible for paying for that? Is that coming out of the school budget? Or are the people who vandalized it going to be responsible for paying for it?
I'll turn that over to Principal Harrington.
We are likely to seek restitution. Right now, the expense of cleaning it up has already been taken care of by the school, but we can seek restitution with the individual families as part of disciplinary proceedings. There is some that we know some of the individuals who committed the vandalism, and in some cases there were students who committed vandalism and we don't know who did, everything. So there were a number of students who participated, and so we're trying to figure out exactly how to distribute that restitution cost fairly among a number of students who committed acts of vandalism who may not be facing that cost. And we don't want we want to be fair to the ones who were caught. Because there's a number of students who participated in it and who remain unknown. So that's under review, I guess is the way to describe it to you tonight, Mary.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the people, I understand you can't figure out all the responsible people, but I don't want it to end up where, well, because we don't know everybody who's responsible, we're distributing that cost to the town.
Right. There's one student I've already discussed the restitution cost with for one particular offense that was distinct and different from all the other stuff. We're trying to be as fair as possible. and understanding of the situation, and some of the students have moved on, since Friday.
Yeah, but I would assume their families would then be
Right,
responsible.
that's right. And there's a process to follow through on
It's
that.
important to note, Mary, that some of the students that were identified have already been doing work at the school and taking some of them facing off, so they were actually doing that for us. So they're already earning their keep, so to speak.
Yeah, because I was more worried about I heard it was like $7,000 for
No.
like video
They're already
cameras.
close.
Oh, no, not at all, Mary, not at
No
all.
damage.
Lenses?
No, it was
All right,
just
so
a
the
cleanup
lenses
job,
are
it was a
fine.
service charge, just for probably to have the company come out. Yeah.
Okay, all right. I
No,
was
we
told
were
had to
we were
replace
much
them.
relieved. No, that's a complete myth.
Okay,
No, nothing of the sort. It was just a cleanup cost.
okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. Any other public input? Lisa, you're on time, kid, all right.
No, you guys were late.
That's true, too.
I can't admit that.
We
I
were
was
busy.
on
We
time.
weren't late, we were just busy.
I can't say I was on time, I'm sorry. I tried. Lisa Boone, Uplands Road, but I'm putting my CPAC hat on because since, there's a whole crowd here, I might as well take advantage of it. Our last CPAC meeting, which is the Special Ed Parents Advisory Council, is going to be next Tuesday evening. It's the final meeting of the school year, and really we're just wrapping things up and looking forward to next year about some of the workshops that we will be scheduling, and we're supposed to hold elections if anybody wants to step up or we're looking for any help. We have lots of great things happening. We have a great relationship now with the Reuben Hoare Library, where we're donating books yearly for the purpose of educating parents and students and staff on special education, student disabilities and things like that, and books that can help, as well as distributing books to the school libraries for those that don't fit in our Reuben Hoare Library. And we're continuing to create lists of books if parents are looking for titles that they have trouble getting. We're buying them and putting them at the library. So input for that, it would be great. So I just wanted to put a big shout out for our last meeting, and anybody who's interested. It's 7:30 at the Littleton High School Library, and we'd love some participation and any requests for areas of need for workshops and things like that. So that's all.
Thank you, Lisa. I'd like to take a chance to segue. Lisa was asking for public input. There, on Monday night, this coming Monday, which is the 13th, 6 o'clock at the Littleton Middle School, is a community input meeting for the master plan update process. We would love to have as much representation from the community as we can possibly get. There is a dinner, there is childcare, there will be raffles, and there will also be some very good discussion about the future of, I know, right? And we're going to have to talk about the future of Littleton, too, okay? That's why we're all getting there. But really, anybody that can find the time, I know it's a busy time of year and there's a lot going on, and there will be other opportunities for community input during the master plan update process, but this is really the kickoff, and it's a real big one, a really great opportunity to weigh in, and it'll be an opportunity for the community to, we're not going to debate, we're not going to measure the merits of suggestions, we're just going to accept input from the community on what they think should drive the master plan, which is going to drive Littleton forward conceivably for the next 15 to 20 years, and how we approach, how we manage everything that means living in Littleton. So if you have the time to be there, 6 o'clock Monday, the 13th, at the middle school, please come. All right, no RSVPs necessary, just come to the meeting. All right. Any other interested citizens? Ladies and gentlemen.
Joshua Harvey, 5 Wilderness Road.
Benjamin LaCroix, 15 Mill Road.
Gianna Sabdidio, 57 King Street. Kate Palaya, 8 Matthew Drive.
So we're students at Littleton High School. We took AP US History this past year, and we've been working on local history projects since the school year began. These projects consist of students researching a certain local subject, such as a religion, a church, a local organization, and so then writing a paper, connecting, researching, and then connecting it to the nation and the town.
We think they provide interesting historical insight on how and why our town is what it is today. So in order to present our works to you, we're collecting our LHPs and putting them into a book titled A Look at Littleton From Then to Now, a collection of local history papers at a price of $20.
And our goal is to create a product similar to Littleton's 300th anniversary book. So after all of our hard work over the past 8 months, we wanted to create something that would display our work in an organized and presentable form.
And all the proceeds earned from the sales will be going to the Littleton Historical Society as a way to thank them for all the hard work and generosity that they have given us in past APUS classes in order to make our project possible. By creating this book, we could set a precedent for future classes, and each year funds will be provided to a multitude of charities in Littleton.
Great. Do we know when the books are going to be available?
In the next couple of weeks.
Next couple of weeks, okay. Love to have you guys, you could let the superintendent know, and we can put that out on our multimedia platforms. Every kid that took AP US History, is their paper going to get in the book?
Yes.
All right, that's great, 'cause I'm pretty sure that's the only way I'm going to get to read my son's, because he won't let me read it without, on his own, so that's good to know. So I'll probably buy at least one. I might try to get it autographed. All right, is that all you guys got? We will definitely help you move that forward, so please stay in touch with the school committee and the superintendent, and we can make it as impactful as possible. Great effort, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other interested citizens? All right, we're going to move into recognition. Before we get to the ones on the list, I would just like to take an opportunity to recognize, we had commencement last Friday. Weather held out, it turned out, actually beyond holding out, it turned out to be a ridiculously beautiful night. It was a wonderful environment. I would like to acknowledge and recognize the two senior class advisors, Sue Harvey and Liz Berry, who did a great job of getting that particular group of kids ready for that event. Bill Marr and his staff did put a lot of work together to get the venue set up. Apparently, Greg Gillette's middle school PE class came racing over and helped out during the day to get the chairs set up, and Beth Steele, teacher at the high school, sent down some of her high school students to help out. Mike Deneau of the theater group was a very big part of that, getting the sound PA system set up and ready to go. And of course, really the big heavy lifter behind the scenes year in and year out is Deb Dion from the high school administrative staff. It was a great ceremony. We also recognize Amelia McGovern, who contributes so much to the community. 70 years since she graduated from Littleton High School. So it was a great event. But the other thing that I would like to acknowledge is you know, it's a good ceremony. I think we clock it in about, what, an hour and a half every year. We do a pretty good job of staying on it. And one of the things that kind of bottlenecks it a little bit is the recognition of the scholarships. But it's meaningful because it's a reflection of the support that the students get from the community.
Yeah.
And to hear the names of the individuals and the families and the organizations that contribute to the scholarship fund, and then hearing the actual dollar amount, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? It's over six figures, that gets put out every year. It's just a terrific opportunity for us all to reflect on how we all come together to support the school system, and it's a special recognition. So it was a great night. Dr. Aaron, any other comments on that?
No, I just echo you. Yeah, it was a fabulous night. I mean, the light, I think I announced at one point, the light shines on Littleton. It was definitely shining on us that night, because the forecast was a bit ominous, and the assistant principal, Keith Camo, and I, at one point, went out to grab a bite to eat, and we're looking at the sky in the distance, and we could see it all gray, and we're wondering if that cloud was coming in or going out, and of course it broke free, and the sun shone through, and it was the perfect time, because it was right about 5 o'clock when everyone was arriving, and it stayed that way throughout the evening, so it was a wonderful night. Really proud of our graduates, and we wish them the best as they move on to their post-secondary life.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm going to get up for the next recognition. And I'm going to ask Olivia Rosenblum, our student rep, to come forward. And we would like to, as a school committee, recognize one of our members, Olivia Rosenblum, who's been the student representative this year. We have a certificate of appreciation signed by all of us, including Mr. Clenchey. You're just a junior, though, right?
I'm a sophomore.
Sophomore.
Be here for a while.
2 more years of me.
Are you coming back?
Hopefully.
All right, excellent. Well, that's what I was hoping for, that
Yeah.
kind of news, so that's awesome. So we appreciate the effort that you made. I know it's not hard to get out every night, but, I mean, we appreciate you giving us updates on what's going on in the district, but what we really appreciate is your participation in the discussions we have on our different agenda items. It's insightful, it's meaningful, it gives us a perspective that Mike and Alex are losing slowly but surely, and Matt, he's not as old as I am, but Daryl and I, it's long gone and hard to find, so we need that kind of input, and we really appreciate it. So thank you very much. Enjoy your summer, and we'll see you.
But you have to stay for
Also,
this
I
one.
made cookies, so they're there. There's 12.
We should have brought you cookies. That's not how that works.
There's 12 because I wasn't expecting so many people.
Your favorite.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to have the cookies after we get done with, I don't know, we'll see, something around down at the bottom, so anybody who can stay for the
PNBC update.
PNBC update.
Surely there'll be fewer than 12 people.
So there you go, all right. All right, what other recognition do we have tonight, Mr. Clenchey?
It's, the recognition's really contained in the package.
Well, actually, we're going to get Olivia's
I
current
think,
report?
yeah, I don't want to steal
Yeah.
Olivia's show.
Yes,
from her,
thank you,
so
Olivia.
Go ahead.
As you said earlier, we're rounding down. We have tallies on like a bunch of the class boards in the school, how many days are left. So the high school has finals from the 16th through the 22nd, so those are all half days for us. The middle school had their spring concert on Tuesday. They have their National Junior Honors Society induction tonight. And they have their 7th and 8th grade end of the year dance tomorrow.
Great.
That's what I got.
All right, thank you. All right, now what do we got, Mr. Clenchey? We have a,
Yeah, we have actually the Excellence in Teaching Award presentation, and just to piggyback off Olivia a little bit, our schools have been virtually busy every night with events, a very busy time of year. I'd like to thank all the staff and students and parents for supporting all the events. I'm sure everybody is ready for the end of the year, and we'll be looking forward to actually having a home-cooked meal at the end of June. But it's really exciting this time of year. It's an opportunity for all of us to celebrate the accomplishments of our schools and school district. And it's one of my favorite times of year to see all the awards given, all the events that our students are involved in, and truly a nice way to finish off a school year. The next item on the agenda deals with the Teaching and Excellence Award. And last year we created this award, and each school principal determines who the recipient is for the Excellent in Teaching Award. Tonight, it's going to be a little different because the high school already announced the winner at their awards night, so usually that doesn't happen, but it did this year. I'd like to just talk a little bit about the criteria. When the principal is selecting a teacher for this award, they take a look at teachers who model deep engagement, mastery of their subject matter. They set high expectations for all students. They establish classroom learning environments based on mutual respect. They effectively address students' different learning styles and needs. They utilize creative and innovative instructional techniques, including integration of technology, 21st century learning skills, and interdisciplinary connections. They continually engage in experiences to improve practice, i.e. professional development, maintain professionalism in communications and interactions with the school community. It's with great pleasure that I'm able to co-award, so to speak, this year's high school recipient, Mike Gillen. Mike, would you please join us, please? I'll ask you to come up and say a few words as well.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Clenchey. Mike, congratulations. And I asked the permission of the superintendent to announce this award at our academic awards night. We had a full house that evening, as we traditionally do in May, for the whole auditorium is full, and Mr. Gillen received a resounding applause. It was quite a night for the students, but also for the staff to celebrate so many accomplishments, but we wanted to also celebrate you as a teacher at the high school. Superintendent has already described the attributes of teaching that are the award criteria. But I would like to share with you a few of some of the remarks I gave that evening on behalf of Mike in recognition of his excellence as a teacher. The purpose of this award is to honor and support the exemplary work and commitment of Littleton educators who exemplify our core values and who inspire a love of learning. This award is, as the superintendent pointed out, presented annually to one faculty member from each school. The award provides not only public recognition, but also $500 for classroom materials and activities. This year's recipient of the Excellence in Teaching Award wrote in an application to teach at Littleton High School, "I've been interested in teaching since I was in high school, and I stayed connected to the field both in and after college by working as a tutor and a teaching assistant. It has been my experiences as an educator that I have found most rewarding. They have allowed me to put to good use what I consider to be my greatest strengths: effective communication skills, organization, and patience. Tonight, we once again confirm with confidence your skills and strengths in the classroom and your excellence as a teacher. This year's recipient of the LPS Excellence in Teaching Award at Littleton High School is Mr. Michael Gillen." You gotta send that to me so I can tweet it. Thanks. It's great. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Mike.
Have a good night.
And we'll delay the next presentation until Principal Branco arrives. He has another commitment.
Seems fitting.
What's that?
Present it when he's not here.
We won't do that. I'm excited to have our middle school engineering club present to us this evening. They've been working hard at developing this program, and they've had it for a couple of years now. We have a few teachers with us this evening and some staff, so I'm going to ask them to come forward and give us an update on what we're doing within the engineering program.
We love it.
Good to see you here, Todd. I wasn't sure who was coming tonight. I understand you had a banquet to go to before you came here this evening, so thank you for making it back for us.
Thank you.
Michael said, you know, this is why this works. Me too.
We want to thank you for inviting us here this evening. We've been having the engineering club. We've been meeting after school from 2:30 to 4 o'clock all year long with a number of things. And there's a number of people to thank, and the first is Katie. Katie was a member of this in 8th grade when 2 other high school students came down and started it, and then she went on to high school and basically headed her up herself for the past 4 years. And then we also had a parent volunteer, Jeff Schachter, whose daughter is being indicted into the National Honor Society, so that's why he couldn't be here. But he arranged a visit to the Science and Plasma Center at MIT. And then we also had another parent, Clement Wong, who was able to create some projects on the 3D printer at work of doing that. We had a number of other parents inquire in the fall, but we weren't sure exactly what we were doing. This is my first year doing it, so we hope to get more parents involved next year. We also have the high school students. There's anywhere from 3 to 10 high school students from the National Honor Society and the Technology Club that come down and help us. Because when we started, we had 40 40 of them. There was a lot of kids all at once, 40 of them, and now we're about down to 20. But we had 40 of them. The other thing I would like to thank is the Littleton Education Fund, because we wrote up a grant for like $1,000, and that's how we were able to get the solar car kits, Arduinos, money for the bus for the field trip. Then also the Littleton Light and Water Department, we made some thermal houses. This is just kind of an example of where they had to put different things in there, and this is where the thermometer was, and then they had the thermal camera so that we could actually take pictures so the kids could actually see where the heat was escaping from the houses. So they loaned us that. And then, of course, the parents willing to pick up their children at 4 o'clock, which is like an off-schedule time. So that was great. Yes, I mentioned Jeff already. Okay.
Hi, I've been in charge of the club for the past 4 years with my sister, Kelly, but now we're passing it off to James, so he's going to come talk about some of the projects that we've done this year in the club. Oh, and we had a middle school engineering club became an NHS committee last year, and so therefore we've had like Ms. Stevenson said, 3 to 10 kids every week, and we also have kids baking like cookies and brownies every week, which is really awesome. We get a lot of participation that way, so thank you to everyone who's done that.
Okay, so I wasn't coming down to a middle school for club for a couple months at the beginning of the year before NHS started and afforded me the opportunity, but I understand you did the solar cars and the egg drop experiment.
This was a failed egg drop experiment pod that we tried to put a rubber band, tie it to the corners, put the egg in there and drop it, and hopefully that would not break, but it did break. One of the better contraption that was made out of fluff.
Marshmallow fluff.
Yeah, so the fluff actually worked and it saved the egg. And then later, the same group decided to use fluff as insulation in one of the houses that we built. And it actually came in right behind the real insulated houses. Unfortunately, the kids didn't think about fluff as an insulator because you have a lot of ants. They actually used fluff for insulation, but it actually insulated the house fairly well. And then we moved on to these solar cars here, and this is the winning car. It has a little neat device here that twirls the solar panel around to get the optimal sun reading. So they designed that, which was pretty neat. It required 10 meters and actually just kept going. As long as the sun was out, it was going to go forever. So it was headed for a parked car, and we had to stop the project. So right now, you guys want to talk about the project a little bit?
All right, sure.
Maybe I'll introduce it. So we have these Lego robotic kits here, and we wanted to come up with a project that would challenge these guys. And we went online, and there were some college videos that we saw where these kids were trying to make a car follow the line, and some of these kids failed. So we said, let's try this. And then we got that to work, and so let's one-up this. Let's actually try to have a stop sign and have the car read a color, and depending on the color, it would do something. And Katie, with her background in programming Arduinos, the kids started programming. Actually, this is a kit from one of the girls' teams that we had. They programmed this to randomly blink on, and we don't have green lights, so we went with blue, but it randomly blinked, and it worked great. The only problem was when the car went around, it read the red lights whether it was on or off. So we couldn't use that because it always would stop on the red. So the kids came up with an idea of using this windmill with the different colors, and they programmed them to randomly turn. So as the car goes around, if it hits red, it'll stop, and if it hits yellow, it proceeds with caution, slows down, and green keeps the speed going. So if
Hold that up.
I'm going to hold one of those up so you can see it.
Okay, so this is the stop sign we made, and this is the car that moves.
So it has two sensors. How do the sensors work?
So this sensor down here, this detects the black line, so that's what makes it follow the black line and go around. And then this one on the side, this reads what color is like right in front of it on the stop sign. So that's whether it should slow down or stop or.
But does it just follow the black line? Does it just
And-
read the black line? Can you explain?
Yeah, so instead of like, so see how this is really curvy, so we programmed it to go, so if it keeps on going, it'll like go crazy, so we made it turn to the left a little bit to keep on going to the track.
So when it sees white, it takes a left, and when it sees black, it goes to the right. So it kind of keeps it, because you just can't say stay on the black, because if it's a right-hand turn, it would go off to the, it'd see white, and it wouldn't know what to do. And if it's a right-hand turn, it sees white, and it doesn't know what to do. So we programmed to see that it sees white, take it right, take a left, and it sees black, take it right. So we will see if our demonstrate this.
Guys, what are the odds? Like 50-50 this is going to work, or like 90-10?
Pretty sure it's gonna work.
You're pretty sure it's going to work?
Yeah,
Okay.
not possible.
Can you put a number on that?
You charge the batteries?
One job, Will.
So when we first did this, they programmed them to rotate just on a pattern, and the pattern was the same. So it would go around, and whenever, if it didn't hit red one time around, it never hit red. So they decided to program it randomly. So now hopefully, because the best thing is to see it stop. That's the coolest part. Gotta get the car going here. We got.
So right now it's trying to find a black line, like we said earlier.
Keep going. Green light. Please hit a red light.
No, we got all night time. Don't worry about it.
That's the only time I've ever said that.
Yeah,
That's the first time.
That worked. Yeah, stop.
Proceed with caution. Oh, there we go.
So, yeah.
So driverless cars are entirely possible.
Well, we don't know how they're doing that yet, because I don't see a lot of black lines.
This took like, what, four different...
Four classes probably to figure out the...
Maybe your own stickers.
A lot of going back to the drawing board.
Right, so it was pretty neat when they came up, let's make it random so it's not always the same pattern. Proceed with caution. Stop.
I have to break these in half.
Oh, that was,
That's great. Good job,
good
guys.
job, boys. Good work.
Okay, so we had the final meeting of this club last week. No, this week. And in order to plan ahead for next year, I asked the kids what their favourite projects were from this year, so we could expand on those, and also if they had any original ideas for projects we could do. And I got very clear responses. What they really enjoyed doing were the solar cars, the egg drop, and especially the 3D printer. And 3D printing's an invention that's taking over many industries at the moment, so it's good to get these kids started as soon as possible. And fortunately, we have a plethora of 3D printers at the high school, so we can bring some of those down, and there's plenty of opportunity to work with those. And in terms of original topics that the kids came up with, one of the big ones was bow designs and bow and arrows. I think something to say about that. Also, paper airplanes, Rube Goldberg machines, and one particularly ambitious young girl said hovercraft. So let's see what we can do with that.
Yeah, so this is a bow that I made for my boys when they were a little younger, and it's just made out of PVC. And I spoke with the owner of TV Archery, and he's going to allow us, once we build the bows, to take them there, and he'll test. He's not going to. He's going to test them for accuracy and speed. So depending on their design and the thickness of PVC that they use and everything, we'll take a field trip over there, and he's going to host us for an afternoon. He'll shoot and test all the bows, which is pretty neat. So they're pretty excited about that. And then with the 3D printing, I was thinking right now this is just the arrow rest, and if they can design a piece of plastic from the 3D printer to get that on and test the design, that would be pretty neat to add to the bow. So that's something that they can do. Engineers redesign and everything. Also, I think at the beginning of next year, while it's still, we still have decent sun, some of these cars didn't work. So, like I said, engineers redesign. So I think when we get back, we only actually had one car make it all the way through the end of the course. So hopefully the kids can, when they have more time, see what they made a mistake on and redesign and make the cars work before we tear them down. It's been a great year, and thank you to the high school kids. They've been unbelievable in their support of these guys.
I was just wondering, Bettina, did you get the permission slip from Tyler, because he's going to have the apple?
I didn't see that yet.
No, we'd like to thank everybody that was involved. You did a great job of talking about the parental volunteer efforts. But really, what impresses me is you guys coming back down, participating, something you participated in when you were younger, and coming back down and feeding back into the system like that. That creates the continuity that we can feel confident that this is something that will have legs and will sustain itself over time. And you guys are really contributing to that, so that's terrific. Thank you very much for that. All right, clean up your mess. Just like being at home.
Guys.
Thank you, guys.
Excellent.
All right, do you want to do the PTA review, and then we'll do the do the PTA?
Yes.
Yeah, and then we'll do the last recognition.
Let's do that.
Just waiting to clear out a little bit. All right, so we're going to have a PTA year-end review. We have a representative from the PTA to give us a brief update, talking about the PTA's accomplishments over the past school year. Bonner, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Hold on, I'm going to get the right one up. Hold on. We got a lot of stuff tonight.
All I ask is no one get hurt falling out of your chairs, because I'm actually up here speaking.
Oh,
Do I get it? Okay, back to the beginning.
I read the whole thing. We're done, right?
Don't need to know anything else. I'm Katie Bonner. I have been involved in the PTA in Littleton since 2007, when my oldest entered kindergarten. Just to give a quick overview on how the PTA in Littleton is structured, there is one executive board for the entire district, covers all the schools, president, VP, treasurer, all of that, oversees everything that's going on at each of the schools. And then each of the schools has their own board of representatives who run all of the functions and the decisions that are being made at that school. There's a lead rep for each school that reports into the executive board. I'm currently the lead rep for Shaker Lane. And we all get together once a month to just talk about everything that's going on and making sure we're all working together. Talking about what's been accomplished over the last year, and I appreciate the opportunity to come up and do this because there's been a lot going on, as I'm sure you know. At the executive board level, our town-wide membership in PTA over the last year, we had 213 families and 12 staff members. That can be a little misleading to the staff members because so many of our staff members are also residents, and so they register under the family, so they have their whole family. So many of the staff members fall under that category. Events and activities that happen at the executive board level include attending all of our statewide meetings. I'm not going to read every one of these because you guys can read. All of the accounting happens at the executive board level, and each school keeps track of their own, but that's one of the primary functions of the executive board. One of the things that we were able to implement this year, the treasurer at our executive board level set up the account so that we started accepting credit cards at events for payment, which has been very popular. And it's made things a lot easier for families. It's been very successful. And then any of the funds raised at the executive level, which is primarily membership dues, is used to pay what we owe to the state and national organizations for PTA, and then it gets distributed out to the individual schools to use as well. So all of that money does get used. Talking about each of the individual schools, at the high school PTA level, community events and fundraisers. They ran the SAT boot camp this year, raffle at Holiday Bazaar, Trivia Night, Career Day, and then all of the various supplies and events and projects that all of that money funded. Career Day in particular was very successful this year. They had about 40 presenters from local businesses who volunteered to come in, talk to the kids not only about what their career is like now, but how they got started and what kind of education was needed to be able to reach that level in their career, and have the kids cycle through and sign up for various presentations. Parent feedback was very, very positive, and looking forward to doing that again next year. And that was deliberately done about a month before college fair. So hopefully that was all tied in so the kids could get ideas about the questions that they needed to ask at college fair. So very well done. Overall, the high school PTA raised about $2,800, and in projects and supplies have spent about $2,500. Middle school PTA, again, a variety of community events, fundraisers, cornhole tournament for the first time this year that was very popular. They added outdoor picnic tables in the cafeteria was one of the big things that have been very popular among the kids with the weather being so nice. There's always kids out there eating lunch if you drive by at lunchtime. Overall, the middle school PTA raised about $4,300 and spent about $6,000. Actually, they started with a positive balance that was funded at the middle school. Russell Street. This is where I have to start to break up all of the different events and fundraisers from all of the projects because there's so much going on. There's a lot going on. There is one error here. Yearbook is not a PTA event at Russell Street. It is run by an after-school club. So I apologize for that. Book fair at Russell Street, to call out a few things in particular, put about $4,600 worth of books into the school this year. The ice cream social and basket raffle raised about $8,000. The annual appeal, which was done in place of other fundraising drives where we just ask people directly to donate so that they can provide for the school, raised about $3,500. Bingo night raised about $1,000, and these are all not just fundraising events but also community building events. At Russell Street, some of the projects and supplies that were funded out of all of that. The back-to-school picnic at the beginning of the year, which is very popular. Various technology, licenses for programs. The student directory, which is very popular among families, which is split between Russell Street and Shaker Lane, is provided free of charge to all families by the PTA. Field trips, T-shirts, all sorts of things. Overall, Russell Street raised about $12,500 this year. So far, they've spent about $9,000. At Shaker Lane, again, a large variety of events, services, and fundraisers that we run there. At the first big one we have is the Fall Book Fair, which is kind of a back-to-school night. Kids are very excited to bring their families in and show their parents around the school. We had 371 books donated by families directly into classrooms in the library, with an additional $1,700 pure cash profit off of that we use to then fund cultural events at the school. In addition to just having the book fair, we combine that with a family night that has a pajama, milk and cookies story time that's very popular, and teachers come in and read to the kids while their parents are shopping. We have Clifford out front who greets all the kids. It's a very fun night. For the first time this year, we held a second spring book fair, which was held during the week of parent-teacher conferences and kindergarten screening. So we were actually able to reach a lot of families who are new coming into Shaker Lane this fall, which was very popular and much appreciated. People came in and wandered around and asked all sorts of questions. It was wonderful. And that was specifically held to raise money for the reading specialist and the librarian. All of the profit was targeted for them. We now have about $3,800 in scholastic dollars just for them to use to replenish their supplies because of that. The other big events are the Kid Stuff coupon books in the fall, which is very popular. That raised about $2,700 this year. And anybody heard of Winterfest and the Shaker Lane basket raffle? The big event at Shaker Lane every year, very popular. Our basket raffle had well over 100 baskets this year, and that raised about $10,000 for us. Yeah, no way I can read through all of the different things that the Shaker Lane PTA has funded this year. Field trip, subsidies, the ice cream social for the incoming kindergartners who gather for play dates all summer long and before they come in so they can get to know each other, software programs, supplies for first grade science, anything and everything. We provide, as I said, the student directory free of charge. We provide the clap-off shirts for second grade free of charge to every student, which is it's really nice to be able to do that for them. Overall, Shaker Lane PTA raised somewhere between $15,000 and $16,000 this year, and we have spent all of that in programs, supplies, and enrichment this year. Of course, none of this can happen without saying thank you to all of the Littleton PTA board members, both at the executive level and each of the schools, who put in countless hours. They're all wonderful to work with. The parents and families who aren't necessarily on the board, but who show up for every event, who donate their time, their money, food, whenever you ask for it, food shows up. It's wonderful how giving our community is and how supportive they are. And of course, all the staff and administration in the district for partnering with us really well and really working with us to make sure that we can do all of this. Overall, across the district, the PTA has funded about $41,000 worth of programs and supplies and books this year. $32,000 is in direct monetary funding from fundraisers, and about $9,000 of that is scholastic dollars, which is used to provide books and other materials for our libraries and staff. So, thank you.
I'm going to ask if any of you guys have questions or comments. Okay, well, she's still up there and willing to speak.
Because I'm not coming back.
Well, thank you for presenting this and for doing all of this great work. It really means a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, no questions, but thanks for all your work and the rest of the volunteers.
Yes, thank you very much.
Kate, I'd just like to say, we talked at the beginning of the meeting about graduation and the scholarship funding that goes on and how representative it is of the commitment of the community to the school system. And obviously, this was another terrific example of it. The money is significant, but it's really, you said it, it's the coming together of the community that really is the benefit. And if we measure the hours and try to quantify that monetarily, you can't. It would be really meaningless to even think about it that way. But it is a lot, but it is so meaningful, and like you said, it's the volunteers that make it happen. And
Yes.
I know these guys really appreciate it. We do. But really, you guys should be, happy for each other that you're in there, giving back like that. It's a tremendous opportunity. And like you say, you get in and it's hard to get back out again because it's just so meaningful. So thank you very much. We talked about, this is the first time you've come here. We would like to kind of make this more of a regular thing, and not just for the PTA. We're talking CPAC, you at least always come up and kind of do it in community input. But I think this is a better opportunity to do it like this, to get it on the agenda, let people know that it's going to be talked about.
Right.
I appreciate the time you put in for the actual presentation.
Yeah.
That helps a lot.
As a year-end review,
And it will go
yeah.
into the packet, and people can refer back to that. So thank you very much. We will see you again.
Yes.
We'll hear from
Thank you.
again.
Yes, we will hear from you again. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go ahead. We got one recognition we want to do. Get up again. All right, thank you. Dr. Branco, would you mind stepping up? We received news, about a week ago, that Dr. Branco has been hired as the Assistant Superintendent for the Tingsboro Public School System, and will be starting on August 1st. Your last day here is... Dr. Branco has been with us as the principal at the middle school for 6 years. And we've talked at many meetings when we talk about presentations that we make on curriculum or programming, how the middle school is a unique challenge. It's a unique age, a unique time in kids' lives. You're catching them as the tail end of growing out of their elementary years, but certainly emerging into that adolescent year and prior to them being young adults. It can be a challenge, but it's also an exciting time. And I think Dr. Branco did a terrific job of harnessing that energy and using it in a very positive way and making it a meaningful experience for those kids to go through. We're fortunate in Littleton to think about one building where those kids are all there together, and the staff coming together and the community coming together. You did a great job of leading that building. It's a very challenging environment, but you came in, you took charge, and you made it a wonderful experience. My kids were there when you were during your tenure, and I'm happy to say that they were. It was beneficial to them. We appreciate all the work you've done. We wish you the best of luck. Tingsboro is very fortunate. It's a great hire for them and a great career path for you. Good luck. I'm not worried about it. I'm sure you'll do great. Thank you.
This is it. It's easy to accept a promotion when you're career motivated, but it's very, very difficult to leave a place that you love and are invested in. And so that's how I feel about this community. On the Twitter page, it says, I think, this is a special place and a wonderful community. And it is no doubt a special school in a wonderful community. I've enjoyed every single day that I've come to work, and it never felt like work. It's a school that I feel comfortable saying out loud that I would send my children to in a heartbeat, and a school district that I've never seen embrace education and the community values. I've worked in 4 school districts, and I've just never felt this way about a community. I've also never worked with a school committee that's this invested and works so collaboratively with the administrative team and with the community themselves. So I'm going to miss a lot about Littleton. I'm happy to move on for a career opportunity, but very emotional about leaving this place. So it's been 6 awesome years for me. So thank you very much for accepting me, allowing me to push the school, trusting me to take care of your children. And you'll be in good hands. I'm positive with that. So good luck, and I will be back to say hi quite often. So thank you. I appreciate
All right. Now we have a presentation from the library trustees on the building project.
Dave Sells.
Good evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Sill. I'm a library trustee with the Reuben Hoare Library. And I'd just like to speak for a minute about some of the things that are going on. All right? So briefly, to talk about the challenges and the opportunity which the library has been presented with, particularly the challenges. So the library has received a $40,000 planning and design grant. We received it in July of 2014. And the town matched the funds to the amount of $20,000 at the November town meeting to give us a total grant of $60,000 for use in planning and design and research and prepare for a renovation and expansion or a construction of a new library, either on-site where the library is or elsewhere. So probably everybody knows here, but the library occupies a portion of a building that was built as the Shattuck Street School in 1952 and remodeled to accommodate the library in 1989. The library, as presently configured, has outgrown the current facility. And additionally, the three-floor layout is an inefficient use of space and contributes to staffing and safety issues. The options to be explored with this grant include expanding and remodeling the existing facility or constructing an entirely new facility. In either case, the project will be designed to meet current and future library needs, to be affordable to the town, to operate efficiently, and to be financially sustainable for the long term. There are two library committees that were involved in part of the process. The first committee was strictly for ideas on what basic layouts of libraries comprised of, and what worked and what didn't in all the libraries around. Okay, we went extensively to different towns everywhere and studied libraries for months and took pictures and all. This evolved eventually into a basic rudimentary design plan, not a final one, but a rudimentary one. The second committee was appointed recently by the Board of Selectmen to determine the best site for a library in the event that a new construction was considered. This committee also reviewed scenarios for renovation, expansion, and/or construction of a new library. They also reviewed sites in town that would be possible sites for new construction. Do we have the slides? Okay, we do. Okay. Okay, that's the town offices, Shattuck Street School or building. Way on the left is the library, and to the right, where the new plan is, that is the tennis court, current tennis court on Shattuck Street. So these are the current options that are under consideration. The Shattuck Street tennis court site, we believe this option is the most cost-effective. The location also allows for easy access by our patrons while maintaining the campus-like atmosphere, which is being close to Town Hall, the COA, and Park and Rec. Do we have the next slide? Okay. That's the slope that's directly behind the Shattuck Street tennis courts and the parking lot. This option is relatively new. One benefit of this option is that it allows the tennis court to stay where it is. A disadvantage of this option is it isn't easily visible, tucked in behind the main town hall building. And also, let's see, the other option we considered was a complete tear down and rebuild at the current library site, okay, which would mean we would tear down the whole end of that building, put another building up. While we consider this to be still an option, it would be costly for the library. It would require us to pack and move to another site temporarily, which would be costly and inconvenient to the patrons, and perhaps might not even be able to find one. So, the tennis courts, also the Morgan property, and renovation and expansion of the current library will most likely not be considered due to expenses and issues associated with those options, mostly in the way you'd have to expand in a building that's already there, very difficult and expensive. So for the tennis court site, the The town council has determined the tennis court site to be under the authority of the school committee. In order for the library to use the site, the tennis court must be voted as excess by the school committee. It would then go to town meeting in November, where the site could be turned over to the library with a 2/3 majority vote. The library trustees are committed to working with all parties involved to locate a suitable site for the new tennis court, as we recognize they're used to both the school and the park and rec, which means if we were allowed to build a library on that site where the tennis court is now, we'd have to find another site, okay? So we recognize how important that is to both the school and the park and rec. Representatives from the library trustees, selectmen, PMBC, Permanent Municipal Building Committee, FinCom, Planning, Conservation, and the town administrator have requested to meet with the chairs of Park and Rec Commission and the school committee in a few weeks to discuss what permissions would be needed to move forward. An email about the meeting was sent out by the library director last week to the school committee chair and the Park and Rec director to forward to the Park and Rec chair. I might add that our director is on vacation, one that he could not change, so plain reservations and all. Anyway, for the possible new tennis court, that slide there, okay. Our architect, Johnson Roberts, has presented the option of moving the tennis court a few hundred feet away from its current location. They believe the option is feasible. Estimates put the cost for this move between $500,000 and $600,000 to build a court there. Also, I might add at this time that the trustees have spoken informally to your tennis coach, and he also mentioned he'd prefer the tennis courts be built at the school. Okay, I understand that it seems as though somebody had been saying that there were 4 courts originally in the design for the school, but they only built 2. So I've been looking to see if I could find a site plan or something, find out where that was, but I haven't. And I understand that we can't hold tournaments at the school because you need at least 3 courts in order to hold a tournament. So with 2 courts, I guess we're not holding tournaments, okay? And you know, what's the problem that's presented now with the tennis courts being at Shattuck Street and the school is that the tennis coach can't be in the same place or 2 places at once. So, anyway, we also have, is there a rear slope slide? Okay. The rear slope option would require, this is to put the library there, okay? This is pretty recent, a recent idea, but the rear slope option would require a retaining wall be built into the side of the hill, but would not interfere with the baseball diamond. We also believe it to be far enough away from the wetlands not to pose an issue. As town council has determined this area to be owned by the school committee as well, it would be, also need to be declared excess and then go to town meeting in November for a 2/3 vote. On the timeline, okay, we found out that we need to move fast. I have the schedule here for how we have to comply with the MBLC criteria for our application, which is Massachusetts Libraries of Board of Library Commissioners. We have to submit a complete application to them on January 26, 2017, and that application must include detailed plans and have our building site confirmed, okay, or else the application won't be accepted. So the timeline here, we need to move fast in order to give our architects time to create a more detailed design, perform any necessary soil and geotechnical surveys of the site of the tennis court, and gain the right to use whatever site is eventually chosen by the town at the November town meeting. Like I said a minute ago, our construction grant application is due to state in January. The application requires that we provide proof of ownership. I believe I just said that. Should the vote for a new library not get approved at town meeting in 2017, if there was an agreement by the school committee to grant us that property, we could also make an agreement which said that if the town didn't want to move forward on a new library, that the land would revert to you or to the town, all right? But we would give up the right to use it. And the next construction grant most likely won't happen until 2020 or later, and that may actually be a little early. I believe I was given to understand that the next round would be later than that, because the way this library grant works now is that the applications are due in January and no decisions are made till July, when the libraries receive their grants. There are currently, from what I understand, 34 libraries in the state that are applying for these grants, and the grants are given out according to need, and they come out like 5 or 6 or 7 libraries at a time, and then you're next on the list after that, and next on the list after that. So while we may get while we may go to the end of the list and not get granted that money until 2020, we could also be first on the list and get granted the money in July of 2017. The schedule here after that means that we would have to get an approval from the town for the money as soon as our grant was given. We'd have to get permission from the town, or money for the town, okay? And then confirm local funds, that would be in 2018, we'd have to do that by, and building wouldn't start until quite a bit after that. So, are there any questions? Many.
I'm going to open it up to the other board members, but just a couple of things that I want to put in context. So the news that we were the landlord is very recent to us.
Yes, it is.
We didn't realize that.
Recent to us, too.
Exactly. And I did get the email and responded with the dates, so I'm sure we'll figure that out, and we will participate in that. In terms of the process, town council and the administrator will figure that out. I don't think, and we'll all chime in, but I don't think it's going to be an issue in terms of, I don't even think we necessarily would have to be thinking about giving you temporary and reverting. I think we're just going to figure this out once and for all from a town perspective, who's going to be the overseers of that property. We'll figure that out. I don't think that's going to be an issue. In terms of the tennis courts, just a little bit more background, what it means to the school system. So we have a boys and girls tennis team. Right now, the way it works is the boys use the 2 courts at the high school for practice and games, matches, and the girls use the courts at Shattuck Street. It is not an ideal situation. They make it work. Tennis is really kind of surging forward. In like 6, 7, 8 years ago, we didn't even have girls tennis. We've got it back, and it's surging in terms of both the level of competition, how hard they work, and the number of kids that are participating. So thinking about the ideal solution would be to have a minimum of 4 tennis courts on one site, would allow the coach to run the program the way it's typically designed to be run at the high school level. So that would be the ideal outcome from an LHS athletics perspective. Whether or not we can get there as a community we'll certainly have to figure out. But having said that, those are the only 4 tennis courts currently in Littleton. There used to be a couple that were very much in disrepair up at Castle in the Trees that are no longer there at all. So that needs to be addressed, and I know that Park and Rec has their own point of view about the programming they use it for. So we just need to keep that in mind, too.
I might add also that the library understands that, the tennis courts are there at Shattuck Street, and there'd have to be, before the tennis court could be taken apart, there would have to be another tennis court somewhere else, okay? And the library, we'd like you to understand that the cost of that, okay, is probably going to be borne by the library. Okay, that's the way we feel it should be. I mean, if we want your tennis court, we've got to get you another one. Okay, the problem is where.
Right.
Okay, so if we can solve that, that would be great.
And the one point that comes out to me is I appreciate, David, the point you're making, but if we were thinking about the ideal solution and the price tag was more than what a viable solution would be, then we can get together on that and try as a town and try to figure out how to make that as palatable as possible to all the interested parties. And we certainly, at least in my mind, don't want that to be the pivot point for whether or not the community where we want a new library, what we need it for, and what's the best order of operations relative to that, so we can figure that out. And like I say, right now, the two-site system is functional. It's not ideal, and there are issues, but we're making it work, as we do with so many of the things we do, both at the school level and across town. I think we do a good job of that, so that part we can talk about. Obviously, the idea of a new library, the issues you cite relative to use and not being effective or as efficient as it should be, how libraries are used in communities is certainly an emerging practice, but from a school perspective, the programming you guys do relative to the audience and our constituency is immeasurable and obvious. So in general terms, I think we would be certainly supportive of it. It's just, as always, the devil's in the details and trying to figure out how we can make all the pieces fit together. I think that's, as a town, I think that's what we're going to be, working in together on to make it work. But it's a worthwhile thing to consider, no question about it.
Thank you. The one detail, the one big hurdle here is that we have to, in order for you to give us the property, that's got to go to town meeting.
Yeah.
And it has to get on the whatever they call that.
The warrant.
The warrant, it has to be on the warrant. And I've been given to understand that that's early September to get on there, so.
I think that's going to be, we'll be fine with that. That's just, again, we just got to go through the process. I don't think there's any particular objections or issues that we're going to see from our perspective. We just got to go through the process, and we know that we're part of that, so we'll make ourselves available to that process.
Thank you. I know you guys are almost done for the year. You deserve a break, but if we can get a little bit more.
There's no finish line there. We all know that. There's no finish line. So that's fine. Any other thoughts or questions or input?
Yeah,
We'll
just
start with Alex.
I had 2 questions on the different slides up. Steve, if you could go to the first slide, Shattuck Street Tennis Court site. So is that would obviously be the additional parking? Would this be the layout if the tennis courts were able to be at the high school, if we were able to move the additional courts?
That would be
Or any other
any
Shattuck
off
site.
Shattuck Street location. Is that just like a turnaround spot at the end there?
Yeah, that's like that was optional, thrown in by the architect. It may or may not be feasible.
Okay, that's just helpful to know. And then the next one, with the tennis courts there, is that the same existing access road going diagonally in the top right corner? Or is that a separate?
Actually, it's not. The existing access road goes this way, okay, because it leads from right the middle of the end of the parking lot and goes down that way.
And then the other one in the very far corner there, that's the existing road that goes down that path there?
Path.
Okay.
That's
and
the path.
Nothing's going to change with that road?
Nothing will change with that. It wouldn't get that close.
That's
fire access too.
Right, that's what I was thinking, with the schools. One thing, I think we've had a great conversation so far. Maybe that's just because of the two of you. Hopefully I don't sully that. But I like the conversation about the location, and with the tennis courts being here, as Mike said, with so many things we're making it work. It's not ideal, we're making it work. If there's a way that we can go from making it work to ideal, that's great. If there's not, then we're going to keep making it work. But one thing I wanted to add is it also, I think, a really big benefit to the schools is that the library is so close to Russell Street and the middle school.
Right.
And that we do have that road up there that,
Right.
although we don't have fire engines going down it very often, I don't think, we do have kids coming up.
We have
into
a
the
lot
school day
of
to the
kids come in
library.
the afternoon.
And
A lot
I
of
think
kids.
that's wonderful.
And it's good for us to be there.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
it's good for the elderly too, because they come right from COA, right through the building into the library. And this way, they don't have to go outside for just a moment to come across the parking lot, so.
And with the new Castle in the Trees developments that the Park and Rec has been running on King Street, I think the whole area is very learning friendly, very athletic friendly,
Yes.
and very child friendly. I think that's excellent that we've been able, as a town, to preserve that. I don't have a strong preference except for making it work, and if we can move it to the high school and figure out a way to make that work, that would be my preferred option. But if we can't make that work, then there are going to be some hurdles to that. I think we can overcome them, but if not, I think we're going to figure out some way to go for it. I'm just not sure which it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I really don't have any comments for right now. Thank you for the presentation, and, you know, I want to echo what Mike said, is that obviously the library is a huge component of what, you know, the totality of what the schools offer and the town offers for educational programs. So, you know, generally supportive of the idea of exploring this further, but I don't really have any opinions really right now on the location right now. I think it needs to be fleshed out a little bit
Yeah.
more.
Oh, it's all pretty new to you, too.
Yeah, very new. Yeah.
So, Brian? Where's our Brian?
Well, actually, now that you have this one here, I mean, I'm not really a fan of having it moved, the tennis courts moved into such a non-visible area too. I think there's something to be said for them to be out front where if other people are using them, it's not tucked back in the woods there. I think that could present a long-term
Right.
safety hazard and concern for
Yeah.
people that might be using it there. So, I just want to express a little concern with some of the things there, because I don't want the placement of the tennis courts to be kind of wherever they happen to fit after everybody is made their first choice of where their project wants to go there on it. And I think I need to see a definitive plan. I support, that as a community we want to do things, but I think I want to see more of the detail before committing to making it happen.
Okay.
Thank you for the presentation. It's a lot to take in. You gotta kind of, take a closer look at it, but generally I'm supportive.
Okay.
I'm just going to make two quick comments. Thinking about 4 tennis courts at the high school, the one thing to keep in mind is that the most obvious impact would be on the parking situation in that lower lot. So that's really what we would have to think about, in terms of the impact on that campus. And then I think it's going to be obvious that in very brief discussions with the athletic director, it's not going to be as simple as leave the 2 that are there and add 2 more. It'd really be more like, no, blow it up.
Yes.
And reorient them so that it's truly functional, because really it's not, that end-to-end design is not ideal. It should be parallel. So that needs to get looked at and addressed and then evaluated. The other thing that I would David, I appreciate you going through the timeline, and I think a real point of emphasis for the community has to be that this is a grant opportunity. It's very similar to the matching funds that we were striving for when we did the Russell Street renovation.
Yeah.
And that drives a lot of the process, because it's an opportunity that if you don't get and adhere to the grantors' timelines and process, then you miss out. And the idea of building a new library, as wonderful it is much more palatable if there's a chunk of change that's not going to come out directly out, because it comes from us eventually, for some of us anyway.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to keep that in mind, and again, we will avail ourselves as much as we need to help you guys, get through that process.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you for saying that. And I would say that the library grant, when it comes, is up to 50% plus 3 to 5% more if we make a green building. Okay, so that's a lot of money. Okay, and also the library trustees have been saving for quite a while, so we also have some funds that go towards that, so that would knock some of the cost to the town out also. They wouldn't have to pay that, so. And we're working hard.
Real quick in terms of timeline, so you would need a decision by us, a vote by us, by early September?
Yeah, before the
close of the warrant.
Before the warrant closes.
And it sounds like...
If we don't make the warrant, we're done.
Right. And it sounds like we need more information. It sounds like the board is generally supportive, but there's more work that needs to be done.
I think really it's getting information from legal counsel about the process for executing the transfer of responsibility.
So that meeting that is about to get scheduled, you got the email.
But you bring up a good point, Alex, because relative to timelines, we are going to go on a little bit of a hiatus. That doesn't mean we can't get together to deal with this, and we will if we need to, but let's take the opportunity. I mean, is there any concerns relative to... The reason that we have authority on it is because Shattuck Street was a school.
Right.
And when it was a school, it was clear that we have responsibility, the school, whatever school committee it was, but, obviously that's not the issue at the moment, or the deal at the moment. So, I mean, do we have any objections relative beyond the process itself?
Well, I have concerns about the process. I mean, technically have concerns with us declaring it surplus, knowing that we need replacement courts, because, and then if for some reason the grant doesn't come through, we need it again.
Well,
There's just a part of that process that doesn't pass a laugh test from an outside observer.
Right.
That we declare it surplus, and then if we get the grant, it's surplus, and if we don't get the grant, we need it back. So I'm a little concerned about the
Right.
semantics of that process
Yeah.
there and what it
And-
means. And particularly releasing it without commitment that
Right.
new courts will be built.
I think it's ridiculous personally to conditionally give up the
Yes,
authority. That's ridiculous. I think we should give it up with the caveat that we do have a vested interest in a portion of the site, and we can't see that without the check and balance in place to make sure that
Yeah.
we're either going to retain that or it's going to be replaced.
And I do believe, I believe I've heard that it's going to be, this whole issue is going to be treated in two parts, the tennis court and the rest of the building,
Right.
which also belongs to you.
Right.
Okay, and the ball field. Okay?
So I get what you're saying. Are there any other concerns beyond that relative to the?
And I would like to say we could make a memorandum of understanding, okay, which would, in the event that this falls through, that it reverts back right to where it was, or at least as close as we can
Well,
make
I
it.
think the tennis court aspect of it, that's what I'm leaning towards, is all I'm concerned about is the tennis court thing. The rest of it, I think the right thing to do is, even if, forget the whole library thing, if we were just talking about the fact that we have control of that, we shouldn't. It's not our property, except for the tennis court aspect of it. That, put that off to the side. Everything else, that parking lot, there's no reason for us
There's
to
some
be.
administrative pieces that
Right.
need to be cleaned up.
Right, exactly.
There that I don't
Very
disagree
true.
with.
Right,
It's just that,
yes. Right.
when it comes about the tennis court, we're, I'm torn as we are actively using it. And
So what level of process is there right now for exploring, I mean, it sounds like the preliminary work of exploring the library locations is obviously necessary, but is there a separate, a concurrent plan to look for other, you're pulling up the site plan for the high school, but is there any other effort to find, is the athletic director involved in any effort to find a new location for the tennis courts? Because that sounds like that needs to be answered.
Because I think from the athletic director's perspective, he's either give me the ideal solution or any other solution is about the same thing I've already got. So as long as I have the two tennis courts, I can live with it. He's not going to worry about if it's there or close to there or 2 miles down in the other direction, whatever, he just needs four tennis courts.
But do we have, is there a plan to come up with what is the ideal solution?
Yes,
And
there are
That's my-
discussions going on between the tennis coach, the athletic director, and at least one of the library trustees. We can think about it, and I'm sure if it gets far enough down the road, we'll talk to the business manager and the superintendent to understand what the impact on the campus and make sure that we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul. What to think about that. That process, I'm not as worried about in the short term. I'm more concerned about going through with council and the other chairs to get this straightened out for town meeting. I think we can get there. I understand the concern you're raising. It's recognized in the meetings that I have. I will make sure that that's represented. I just want, if there's anything else you guys want me to represent, now would be a good time to let me know.
In terms of process, maybe getting an update during our summer retreat would be helpful.
Minimally.
Yeah.
It might be very well that maybe we do convene at least once just to figure it
Over the
out.
summer, yeah.
We can certainly give information out via email, no deliberation or discussion. But if we are moving faster, where it actually would help to have a vote, and we think we've got the resolution, then we'll do it. If we think we can wait till the first or second meeting after we get back, then we'll do that. But we'll keep an eye on that timeline. Kelly, do you have any thoughts?
Well, just the process is going to take some time, and please be aware of that. I've been involved in dissolution of properties before in my career. And the sooner that you seek legal advice and start getting something in writing, then we can have our lawyers also look at it, so that we're, by the time you come and see us at our retreat, hopefully we'll have some language that we can present, and we can move forward with. And then you're going to have to somehow deal. I haven't been officially notified that we own the building yet, so I'm just kind of thinking on my feet here. And we're landlords, we didn't even know it. But it's an interesting concept. We need to figure out how to deal with that and that parcel of land as well. So, I mean, there
I
is
think
some
town council's got a bit of work, because I don't know if you grant just the building or the land that the building's on, so they may technically have to subdivide that lot in order to separate out the other
That's what I'm
assets
thinking.
from it.
That's what I'm thinking.
There, because we don't declare a building excess, we declare the whole property
Yeah.
excess there, so. I think there's a lot of legwork that's gonna need to
But
happen.
having said that, that's clearly on the town side versus the school side. We are waiting to be receptors of that information, and we will, again, make ourselves available to react to any information that we get. That, we get that it's a priority, and that's no problem. But, right, just keep those guys' feet to the fire.
But I do have one concern, because I've seen it on the PMBC side, there's only several properties in town that everybody has been out to visit, was it the Prouty property, and it's been deemed unacceptable for a bunch of different purposes for different projects. I'm concerned about us having to dedicate staff resource time that's gonna go on this same visit to all of these other properties again. I would like to see that the likely candidates get identified and not have our staff end up doing all of the legwork of, is this going to be a good place for a
For the tennis courts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just got to be,
Yeah, to speak to that, we when we first started looking at the tennis court site, we spoke with Park and Rec, because we thought, well, that's where we start, it's the tennis court. And they were not happy with us wanting that, but I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
I get, yeah.
It consumes a lot of time.
Yep, I
And
appreciate
I
that.
think we've got to be respectful about the things we've already asked our staff that they
Yep.
have to get done.
We'll make it work,
Yeah.
but be cognizant of that. All right, great. Thank you, Dave.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Have a good evening. Thank you for your
As
time.
well.
Thanks.
What I think I'd like to do, if you guys don't mind, is let's go into the budget visioning part of it. A lot of the other stuff is just stuff for us, the school improvement plan update, approval of handbook updates, the field trip, the MASC resolution, and the superintendent evaluation. We can get all that done moving forward. Let's go ahead and do the budget visioning, because I think we do have some people here that maybe want to speak to that, and we don't necessarily want to hold it through anything else. We're 10 minutes ahead of time on that, but I think we'll be okay. Is that okay?
Better than being the other way.
Yeah, exactly. Better than being the other way.
Now, the information that I handed out to you was a cumulative list from our leadership team. I wanted you to be aware that this in no way has been put into priorities. I haven't personally vetted it as your superintendent. We did it as part of our leadership team meeting on Tuesday. But we felt that it was important to have something in writing to at least help facilitate the discussions. There would certainly be more work necessary if we were going to plot out a definitive plan.
I appreciate that, and I think I'd like to add to that. So the idea here is this is a visioning exercise. It's not an opportunity to debate the merits or the cost-benefit ratios or anything along those lines. It's really just an opportunity to identify, if, as we move forward, where would we like to, target additional resources and additional spending and acquire additional programming and/or staffing. So we should feel free to evaluate these things very loosely and freely, and then taking this information, any more information we can gather tonight, we can then sit down as the budget subcommittee and start thinking about, prioritizing and things like that, and then have a more weighted discussion in the fall prior to us really diving into the normal budgeting process or the standard budgeting process. So I think if we operate under those assumptions and caveats, I think we can have a good discussion tonight. We did get this just now. We will put it into the packet and make it so other people who are paying attention can certainly reference this and get an idea of what the admin team is thinking about. you know, I don't know if you guys want to go through it. I don't necessarily want to go through it line by line, because it's,
That makes sense.
What might be helpful for you as a school committee is to just, you know, skim it school by school and ask questions if you do have questions. I do want to make a comment, though, before you even do that. This in no way indicates that we're not accomplishing the mission of our school district. If we weren't accomplishing our mission, you'd hear about it. You would have heard about it loud and clear many times before this evening. What this is doing is trying to read the future, and what our future needs are going to be as our school demographics change, as our population changes, as we didn't address building space needs yet. That's something that we will be addressing later on. But we're looking at potential programmatic changes in terms of some of our different populations that we're getting. Our ELL, English language learner population, is changing. We have over 16 different languages that are spoken in this community, and we need to address that. We are now, but as we continue, those languages are going to increase, and we're going to need more resources to do that. Programmatically, we're looking at specialized programming. Within our special education population, we do have students that we have to place out of district because we don't have the critical mass or number of students to provide effective programming for them in district. But what's been interesting in the last 5 years is that we're starting to get that critical mass, so we're bringing programs into our school and hence bringing those students back into our district. And that's what we want. We want all of our students, if possible, to stay with us in our community. So we're looking at those changes as well. I just wanted to bring a little bit of context to this before we start talking about it. We're very pleased with where we're at as a school district. Of course, we could use more money. Anybody can use more money. But the trick is to balance the needs of the school district with the needs of the entire town and make sure that as a town we have all the necessary services to feel comfortable.
Thank you. I'd like to kick it off with one observation after quickly perusing this, is that there are, unsurprisingly, some ideas about adding staff, but what jumps out at me is that we're not necessarily talking about adding direct classroom staff to, add another third grade classroom or add another, a lot of it is, literacy specialists, math specialists, support outside of the classroom for other programming, whether it's technology or things like that. Did you guys recognize that as well as you went through that? Did it jump right out at you?
I think there's some unknown. Like at least when I did it for the middle school, I felt like I was putting together a visioning plan for stuff that I was well aware of, and I just feel right now, maybe like the rest of the town, that it's pretty unknown what the numbers are going to be coming in and out based on the new construction. So we've talked a lot as an admin team about it, but I don't know that any of us are comfortable reacting without anything definitive on paper because we really don't know yet.
So I think if you don't see classroom staff down there, that's the reason why. It's very, very difficult for us to predict beyond the year what our population is going to be. I know that my population in September was 34 students more this September than it was the year before. If that growth continues, then clearly, but I can't predict that.
And if I may, or I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think, to your point, Mike, that's true. I think that our support services, at least at Russell Street, are teetering on, if we add another classroom, we're going to start to get into trouble with being able to provide art, music, and PE in the kind of blocks that we want to provide them in. So we're starting to get to a point where we're probably going to need another classroom, but we need to think bigger than just that one classroom in order to get kids what they need. Our special education caseloads are growing. The way we're providing special education is changing. So yeah, I think you're right. We certainly want to keep our class sizes reasonable, but a big part of what's going on is thinking about the whole building and how do we provide support for students and teachers outside of their immediate core instruction.
If I could just add, I think one of the things for us is, and I think we all share this in common, is the shared staff across buildings. There's an issue with, for example, in music, where we would like to change our bell schedule at the high school, but it really is contingent or dependent upon the ability to free up some staff or add additional staff at the high school. and also complementary at the other schools to offset that change in the bell schedule, which we think is educationally beneficial. That actually isn't noted there, but it is noted in my school improvement plan update. And I think, and I'll address that when we get up there about that, but I think also the sharing of ELL. The ELL is most felt, I think, the highest caseload is at the elementary level right now, at Shaker Lane in particular. But as those students come through the pipeline of pre-K to 12, high school and the other middle school will have to prepare for that shared. There's a lot expected of one person right now. She'll need to be freed up or assigned to one building, and either part-time staff to support her at another building will be like the high school, where we're low incidence building for ELL learners at this point in time. That will have to be addressed. So I can see that there will be a need for staff in particular areas, particularly in support services, and some of that is noted in some of the bullet points.
If I may. Scott said it very well about how sometimes the best way to help the kids isn't just adding another teacher. Obviously, we're trying to be mindful of class size and the number of classrooms we have, but also the supports we can provide. Just to get them through, most of them did include class size in one way or another, but it was not just again, this is very surface level, but my takeaway was that it's a really holistic approach. So for example, Rich mentioned trying to maintain a certain student-staff ratio, but also taking into account everything else that goes on at Shaker Lane. That's not just the classroom teacher. Kelly, during the budget subcommittee meeting we had the other day, we were talking about the Tier 4 supports, which is for special education students who have significant needs that we are still able to meet in district, but that does take an investment. And if we weren't able to meet those needs, we would definitely see that money being spent on those same students elsewhere, but we think this is the best way to meet those needs now. And as we see those populations move from Shaker Lane up to Russell Street and into the middle school, that's going to be something to keep in mind as well. And the high school already has the Tier 4 classroom, I think,
right,
as well, which is also sort of where we were demographically. But I just want to say thank you so much for this. I'm looking forward to, I don't know if I'm going to have time to go home and read it tonight. We'll see how quick we can get done, but I think this is really important work, and I know we've been asking a lot of you all the last couple of years from a budget perspective to make it work. We're talking about the tennis courts. In the schools, we make it work, I think, just about everything. I don't know that we ever have, we're ever going to get an quote-unquote ideal budget situation, but I think that's just part of the business, and I think we do a really good job at doing the best we can with what we have, and I'm really excited about all of this. I think we might not get everything, and we might look at everything 2 or 3 times and say, well, maybe we should do this instead of that, but this is really a really strong foundation for that conversation that we haven't afforded ourselves to have because we've just been looking year to year. And so I think this is a revolutionary approach to the way that I think we as a district are addressing these issues and looking ahead, and I'm very grateful for the lookout.
Yeah, so, I mean, I skimmed it like as quickly as everybody else just did there, but what struck me is I think it gives us the opportunity to use these details. I got some other things of my own personal interest, and then maybe step back one level from that. There's some themes across all four schools, of which helps us, you know, I think if we step back and then looked at it from, you know, consolidating not the micro, we need the detail list, but looking at our support staff, looking at our staffing resources, looking at, you know, the continuity across our programs across all our buildings, looking at the depth of the programs across all the buildings, and then recategorize these into them independent of which school they came from, and that might set theme areas for us to look for specific investment areas. And then as those bubble down in terms of where does strategically those initial investments make sense versus the longer term investments, you know, happen there, because, you know, because some of them will take time, and, you know, like I said, I don't want to address things one at a time on a list. I think if I think about the themes, we might be able to bin, you know, we need a significant investment in our support staff infrastructure. And then when do we tackle that within, you know, the next couple of years, type of things there. The staffing resources, you know, related to, you know, the classroom support and the other pieces there. Again, I think there can be themes there, because I think that decision about whether it's in district or out of district of a SPED program, we're going to have to do that decision independent of what we want to do for long-term budgeting and planning there. So I think we've got to sort of balance all of those initiatives simultaneously, or at least take a look at them simultaneously and
I'd
then
like to add
prioritize.
to that theme comment. One of the things that's not specifically identified in the high school bulleted list is, but it's a theme across all the buildings, is the need for, at some point in time, a special education team chair at each building, because of the number of things that are specifically, the expertise, the energy, the time, and the demands that are put on administrators and the special education staff is immense. And that would be something that I think we've all identified that at one point or another, but that would be something I think you'd find common across us. And again, it's really, like you said, it's really the supports for the classroom, so that everything can go smoothly and efficiently.
Because I think through the budget process over the years here, the physical support staff and then some of the educational support staff, we've had to curb that back because of just the budget constraints and trying to identify where those are applying the pressures. I think we can build the stronger case, moving forward for it. So.
I appreciate that. I think those are good comments. The other thing I'd like to add is that in this list, beyond the buildings, we got some feedback from the business department, the curriculum, and Director of Pupil Personnel Services, so I appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. That's meaningful as well. At this point, I would like to open it up to the community. If anybody here has anything they would like to offer in terms of budget visioning, I would ask you just to come up and use the podium, because that microphone feeds directly into the television broadcast and makes it more meaningful to people that are watching at home. Is there anybody from the community this year that would like to talk about budget visioning?
Sure.
Guinea pig. No, I'm getting up, but I always get up, so I'll let somebody else talk first.
Someone's going to be number one.
All right. I do appreciate the moving around of the agenda. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Justin McCarthy, Stony Stream. There are a couple of us here tonight, and I'm sure there are many more at home, but we're here to voice our concerns for full-day free kindergarten. I don't know all that much about it. I'll probably get the statistics wrong, but I think it's a growing trend in Massachusetts. It's something that the school committee should certainly consider if our schools want to stay competitive. It's one of the reasons why we live in Littleton, and we love Littleton. The schools are tremendous, but there's a vast majority of school systems inside Massachusetts that are offering this now, and I just wanted to voice our concern that I think you need to be building this in, obviously not next year, but in a couple years, and we need to get ready for it. In addition, my other point would be that I think it's something like 87% of students enroll in full-day kindergarten, close to that. But we've built our day around those that aren't there full day. So that all of the curriculum takes place in the morning, and what we're actually paying for, something around $4,000, is for gym and music and recess and art, which are all very important. But if 87% of the students are paying the $4,000, there should be a full-day program to accommodate the vast majority of students, because what's really happening is we're subsidizing those that aren't paying for the full day, and that might be their own choice, or they might not have the means, and that's perfectly fine, but it just seems like the system's kind of upside down. And those are my comments for you guys to consider long-term.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to mention, we didn't go down list by list, but, and if this is not in a prioritized list, but Rich Ferry, the principal at Shaker Lane, right under program, is tuition-free full-day kindergarten. So that's been acknowledged by, appreciate you acknowledging it from the community side, but it's certainly being acknowledged from the admin team side, and it certainly has been something that we've talked about here too. So anybody else for community input on budget vision? We'll have more community input on other stuff too, so right now I'm just asking.
Well, I'll just keep coming back up.
That's what Lisa does.
I'm Rebecca Lewis, Harvard Road, and I guess this is somewhat of a budgeting issue, but it's related really to the town growth and the comment that was made about not knowing what is going to be happening. I've only been in the school district for 2 years, and the numbers of students that get added to the classrooms is really kind of starting to scare me. When I look at these developments and houses going in on every parcel of land available in this town. I moved from a town nearby a few years ago, and part of our concern there was that the town was just not investing in the early elementary school and making sure the class sizes stayed down, and kids were school choicing out. And so the budget visioning part of this is we are accepting children from other towns. And I think that's something the school committee really needs to consider. If we're not, we don't have the space, at least when I look at Shaker Lane, there's no expansion space. You're talking about new buildings, if the population continues to grow as we assume it will, based on the housing. I think this is something that short-term the school committee really needs to consider is, are we letting a lot of kids in from other towns? And I don't have any idea what the numbers are, but is this something we should consider, particularly at that kindergarten level?
I appreciate that. I just want to make two quick comments on that. In terms of physical capacity, one of the things we've talked about is we will be undertaking a formal effort to evaluate our physical space and where we think the limits are. Some of it would be conceivably before rebuilding, repurposing how we use the building, so we're going to get our arms around that. Relative to school choice and bringing kids in from other districts, we actually just at our last meeting approved school choice for this upcoming year. And as part of the discussion, what we talked about is we are cognizant of it's not a grab just to get kids. There's certain, you reach a certain point where you get efficiency of scale by virtue of doing it. We are cognizant of that there's a point where you tip and you're no longer getting the efficiency of scale, you're actually having a negative impact. So we are cognizant of that. Are we right? Well, we don't, that you got to measure that out. And I think you cited it quite well. Because of the changing demographic, we need to be very cognizant of that, and that's something that we will keep an eye on.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Hey, we know you're coming, so let's get it out of the way.
I'm one of the few people who's here normally, so
You earned the
I
right.
think that buys me something.
You earned the right.
Lisa Boone. Of course, I'm going to come up here and be very supportive of the idea of support staff, and because outside of my role as a CPAC person, I've had children in the district for many years who have needed that support staff. And what we've seen over the years is a continued need because of the change in the way that teachers are, the expectations in the classroom now, in the general ed classroom, the goal to keep students within that room as often and for the course of the day, rather than having to pull them out, and be able to provide for not only those students who need that extra support, but so that it doesn't somehow affect the other students in a negative way. It really is so important. It's a very big balancing act of keeping the numbers down enough so that the teacher can manage everybody, as well as support each of the students as needed. And because of the way that our teaching has changed so dramatically in the ability to differentiate and sort of give and as needed, it's a lot different, as you all know, than just lining up the tables and the desks and chairs and everybody sits and watches and the teacher's at the board. That's long gone. And so as we continue to our demographics change, which require ELL support and many other supports which are not special ed, which do not provide a special person or a support person in that classroom, we need to be cognizant of how to then change with these changing times in being able to support our teaching staff so that they can be in that classroom and do the best job that they have available to them for the students. And so one of the things that I'm always very aware of, because I have some special ed students, is the time that teachers are pulled out of the classroom to attend meetings and to be doing those duties is significant, and it's even bigger for those who are special education staff, and they are needed as well to work with the students. That's their goal. They want to work directly with students, but they're often doing many other duties which are more administrative. Because we don't have those administrative staff, because we're such a small district, it takes them away from the things that they really want to do most because it's required. And so the better we can provide more opportunities to work directly with students for those roles, it's just a win-win for everybody, for the students and for the school as a whole. It helps our regular ed teachers, our special ed teachers, our students. So just being aware of how that all works and understanding it is so very important, and knowing why that support staff is so valuable to our system as a whole. So I just wanted to give a big plug for that. I haven't seen the requests, but I just know because I've lived it for many years. And I'm also a parent who has a student who required significant support when he was younger. I mean, the highest level of support from when he first got here in first grade through some years. And let me tell you, it was worth every penny and every moment that he had, because now as a high school student, he's incredibly independent. He's going to be going to college. And this is a student that, let me tell you, some of the teachers from years ago would never have believed it. So it really is a great investment to make sure that, especially at those younger levels, because it really does make a significant difference in the lives of those students as they grow, and allows them to be more independent, and allows them to be able to reach the curriculum at the level that they really can by having that investment early on. And so especially at the younger grades, it's so critical. And I think we've seen that change in the lower schools, where, the elementary schools, where we had sort of pared back on that support staff. And so my plug would really be for focusing on those areas. And then we have some great needs in the middle school, elementary, like the upper elementary and middle school. What we're seeing is a lot of need for things that aren't direct academic work, like the organizational skills. They're now calling it all the executive function skills, which don't fall necessarily under special education. They're really for everybody. And if we have the ability to figure out how to, get that into the regular ed curriculum, but it's going to need people who are trained to help train the regular ed teachers and to help train the students. And it may be one person, but that person could be very valuable to our entire system. So there are some things that I'm sure that our administrators are exploring on how we can get the biggest bang for our buck, and investing in these things which don't look like a classroom teacher, but can make a significant difference in our school system as a whole. So I am thrilled, I have to say, like I said, I've not seen it, but I'm thrilled that this is getting done. It's something that I've wanted to see over the years, over and over again, where, if we don't address where we see there's a need, and we just always applaud at all our great, accomplishments, because I think we have a great school system, I really do, but we should always be striving for how to improve, and we should always be looking at what do we think we can do better, because there's always an area where we can improve and do better, and how do we invest in that, and how do we invest it in a way that it affects the greatest population. So I'm excited to hear this, and I'm hoping that we find a way to make some of these things happen, and soon. And it's great to have a plan going forward. I love the idea of not just looking at the next year, and really having this vision of how are we going to see our system just blossom into the best thing that we can create. And I see that sort of starting. We're sort of in our infancy. I think our superintendent has helped, get people thinking in those terms, and I hope our school committee and then our town gets on board, because I'm all for it. And so that's great. Thank you.
Chuck DeCoste, 4 Matthew Drive. From First of all, I'd like to say that this administration and this board does a great job of doing the best for the most, and I think we're lucky to have all of you. Kind of hijacking your meeting, coming from some other meetings tonight, wanted to try to be here to recognize Mr. Branco, so I apologize for hijacking. I missed most of your meeting, but I just wanted to publicly say, for myself, serving with you for 6 years, thank you very much, and for the town of Littleton. I can't speak for all the selectmen, but from this selectman, thank you very much for all that you've done.
I appreciate it. You want to throw one thing in there, budget visioning, just to...
All right, so I'll throw you a bone. I'll throw you a bone. I will say that I'll guarantee you that Mr. Carr's got a big smile on his face back at home if he's watching this meeting, seeing that there is some visioning. And I think, again, this board and this administration has always done a good job of having a vision, having goals. You're going to be talking about the August retreat, and a lot goes on in the off-season, if you will, and everybody here does do a lot of work and puts a lot of time in creates a vision and works towards that vision. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good job. Little phone. Anybody else on budget vision?
I'm not crazy about being on TV.
You're not. It's all right.
Maybe no one's watching.
Pretend to.
Hey, turn it up.
Carrie Lavoie, Stony Stream Lane. I'm here for two purposes. One is full-day kindergarten. Needs to happen. I have a almost 4-year-old and an almost 3-year-old, and I'm afraid for them that they're not going to compete with the other kids in the other districts that are getting these full-day services. And as a parent, I wonder if we wouldn't need such a demand for transitional if we did have the full-day kindergarten program that most of the districts in the state are offering. And ours in the afternoon, in this parent opinion, is daycare. For $4,000, I can buy a lot of art classes and a lot of music classes for my kids. I'm a stay-at-home parent. I honestly can't justify that cost. I'm concerned that are my first graders, who aren't used to a full day of school, going to be able to compete with their first grade peers? That is a big concern for me. The other concern I have is I have a daughter coming out of early intervention. She is in the SPED department now. She has an IEP. It was a very chaotic entry into the school system. Definitely see the need for special ed coordinators. There was a lot of mixed messages, hurt feelings, misunderstandings due to a lack of communication and nobody following up, because the providers for the special ed really shouldn't be doing administrative tasks. They should be with the students. So 4 or 5 days to get an email response is very frustrating as a parent. So I really do see the need for much greater support staff to help keep the speech teachers in with the students, and the PT and the OT. And all these services, they really need to be in the classroom, not dealing with administrative tasks that somebody that's not as specialized as them can handle. It just wasn't a very good introduction into a school system. And that's really concerning to me, because we live here for the school system. And with the lack of full-day kindergarten and the chaotic entry that, in my opinion, I had into the school district, it kind of has made me maybe not recommend Littleton as much for the schools. And that's concerning to me. So I hope you guys can get those support staff that the schools desperately need. And that I hope you guys really put some thought into the full-day kindergarten, because 86% of the students do pay for it. I just have 2 children back to back, and I'm a stay-at-home parent, and I can't justify $4,000 is a lot of money to my family. It's a lot of money to any family. To take a music class and a gym class and a rest time and lunch. And that makes me concerned as they head into the upper grades, that they're going to have lost a little bit of an edge on some of their peers because they're not used to being in school all day. Just my opinion.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, thank you all for coming out. Alex, I appreciate you pushing on this one. This is kind of the second effort. We kind of had one early in the year. Now this is the end of the year. And that was the idea, was to do this one at the end of the year. And I think Daryl really tagged it. It'll give us an opportunity to digest this and tease out the themes. And the budget subcommittee, we're going to be talking about the budget process sort of as our focus of our August workshop. And some of this will certainly be discussed as part of that. But then as the budget subcommittee goes to work in September, and the goal is to go to work earlier than normal for a variety of reasons, not least of all this type of information that we now have that we maybe didn't always have in this type of format. So I think it's very worthwhile. I think you sense that we all agree on that, and we'll try to take as full advantage of it, of the opportunity as we can. So thank you, and we will keep moving. We'll back up. All right. School improvement plan update. All right, we're ready for those?
Yeah, we'll start with Shaker Lane. And as we had talked about before, just to reiterate the conversation we had, we're going to emphasize some major salient points and the impact it's had on your respective schools, and then give us a bit of a what's in the future and for next year in terms of what you feel is important. So we'll start it off with Principal Fairey.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's always a pleasure to stand up here and talk about what we do at Shaker Lane and what the accomplishments have been for any school year. As you know, I feel I have an extremely dedicated staff who is committed to always doing the right thing for kids, and I'm really pleased with the work that they've done this year. One of the first things I wanted to talk about and point out was the implementation of our new English Language Arts program, as Mr. Bazidlo did at our last meeting. We have purchased and have implemented a new K-5 language arts program. The name of it is Journeys. That was a major endeavor this year. We completed our staff professional development, both in the use of the program and also in the technology that is available with the program. One of the things that I hear from staff all the time that they really feel is an improvement is the comprehensiveness of the program, in that not only does it have a lot of the more standard reading curriculum included, but also spelling, vocabulary, and writing, which were some of the components that were missing from the program that we had before. It is Common Core based and meets all of the standards, and we look forward to using this program for the next few years. Somewhat related, and I'm going to talk a lot about the first page of the report and then just hit a few other things. We've done a great expansion this year of our nonfiction informational library, both in our classrooms and in our school library as well. That's been through the generosity of the PTA and proceeds that we've had from our book fair, from parent donations, and also Kelly Hart, our transitional class teacher, and of course now I'm blocking the name of the author that gave us the grant, but she wrote a grant, and it was through Scholastic, and received a grant for $3,500 to purchase books for our library, and also $3,500 worth of Scholastic books to purchase for her classroom library as well. So the man who did the grant was a mystery writer who began writing adult mysteries and then transferred over into writing children's books as well. And of course, his name is totally escaping my mind right now. One of the other things that we spent a lot of time on this year, many of you know who have had children at Shaker Lane and have heard me talk about before that one of the assessment instruments that we've been using for the last 7 or 8 years is the DIBELS, the Dynamic Inventory of Basic Early Literacy Skills. And it certainly has served us very well, and we're not putting that away entirely. But one of the things we realized, as we do with any other thing in education, is that it was time for us to step back and take a look at our assessment practices, both in math and language arts, and to make sure that they were current and up to date. We decided to tackle the language arts portion of this year. We'll be looking at math next year. And what we did was we did a lot of research, a lot of scholarly research, along with a lot of practical research as well. We looked at what it was that we felt was missing from our current assessment practices, and one of the big standouts was a tool that easily assessed student reading comprehension. The DIBELS does a very good job in phonemic awareness and blending and fluency, but it doesn't really have a strong comprehension assessment component. So we looked at programs that other districts, other high-achieving districts were using, and we decided that what we want to begin to use next year is a system called the Fountas and Pinnell benchmark system. Fountas and Pinnell, for those of you who know about reading, have been around for many, many, many years. Irene Fountas used to be a professor at Lesley University. She also had a lot to do with reading recovery many, many years ago as well. And what that will do for us is provide us with a vehicle that will assess both how our students are doing in comprehension and what their reading level is as well. So we'll be looking at phasing that in during the next year as we continue to look at math. When I mentioned high-performing districts before, this is a system that's used in Brookline, Wellesley, Acton, Boxborough, and Harvard. So we really have done a lot of looking at what other places are using and actually talked to the people on the ground, both classroom teachers and reading specialists that are using the assessment. So we're looking forward to expanding what we're doing with that. One of our other major focuses, and Steve, actually, you can go down to the last page. We certainly did a lot with communication this year. I'm proud to say that all of our teachers have classroom blogs right now that they're using. So we're really getting and using, we're participating with Littleton Cable TV. We've had a few shows on the year. So we're certainly getting our information out there as well. But one of our other major focuses was looking at social emotional learning. We have made a full investment, both monetarily and philosophy-wise, into a program called the Second Step program. It meshes very well with the HEART program that we still have and that we will continue to have for many, many years at Shaker Lane. And there are many different components to the Second Step program. It talks about, it has modules on skills for learning, so working with kids on focusing, following directions, how to listen. On empathy, identifying feelings, identifying anger, caring and helping, emotion management, how do you deal with anger, how do you manage disappointment, what do you do when you really mad at a friend, and friendship and problem solving, fair ways to play, joining play, identifying a problem. One of the things that we really like about this program is that it goes through both preschool through second grade. So it's a program that we can use throughout our building so we can develop a common language just as we have done with the HEART program as well. It also has an online training component. So as we hire new staff and they come into Shaker Lane, we'll be able to hook them up with an online training. So we don't have to worry about having presenters come out and train our staff all the time. So we've been really very excited about that and how it's meshed really well with what we're doing. In terms of what we're looking at for the future, as I mentioned before, we'll be looking at what we're doing for math assessments during the upcoming year. We've dabbled with a few things this year, but really haven't found anything that will provide us with good benchmarking information, because that's what these assessments are all about. It's being able to, do your initial assessment at the beginning of the year, look again at 6 or 8 weeks later and see what your interventions have been doing, and then look again another 6 or 8 weeks later. So it's continual assessments. And so we're looking for something in mathematics that will not take an abundant amount of time, but will also provide us with accurate information. We will be continuing to look at what we're doing with technology. One of our first grade teachers this year piloted a 2-to-1 program with iPads in her classroom. What we're doing right now is looking at what was the end result of that? Did that have an increase in both students' actual hands-on part of tasks, on data collection for us, and on instructional achievement as well? So we'll be looking at that to see whether we want to expand that in the future. Do you want to do questions now, Kelly, or do you want to wait till everybody's done?
No, I think we should
Questions now.
Yeah, doing school. Yeah. Matt, we're going to start doing this in.
I don't have any.
That's fine.
No, I had ticked off little things, and you touched on all of them there. I wanted to make sure I understood the impact of all the different areas that we were investing in, and you hit those very nicely for me, so no questions.
I'm also
That's a warning to the rest of you.
Thank you. You focused a lot on the social emotional piece, which when I was in the building a couple weeks ago and I saw that, it was very real, and I love the way that you're emphasizing that, and all of you are emphasizing that in each of your buildings in a really holistic way.
Thanks, Rich.
You're welcome.
Good evening. I would like it duly noted that I actually literally highlighted mine because it was the only way you won't get me off
Made the hard
quicker, so
choices
I
ahead
did.
of time.
Real tough choices here. I mean, the two at the beginning are really, really crucial to highlight. A huge amount of curriculum review and development that has happened over the past couple of years. We've kept you abreast of that a lot as a school committee through presentations by the curriculum teams, but I guess the end result is what you're always the most proud of. So we are about to move forward with the adoption of adoption of the Discovery Education Science Program. It's a very robust web-based tech book that we're very proud of. If you remember last year, I came to you and mentioned that we were completing year one of the pilot. They weren't happy with that pilot, and we shifted gears and picked up a second program. This comes out of the Discovery Channel of Education program. It's an unbelievable science program. So it's been very well received. The teachers and the student feedback has been very positive. And we also purchased a Chromebook cart that has supported that program, so students are able to always have access to the technology to make that happen. So that's been a very, very big undertaking. The second one that I'm very proud of is the heavy, heavy lifting that the English Language Arts Department has done in a very quick amount of time to really take a comprehensive look at what we've been doing for the past 3 or 4 years and where we needed to go. And they have also completed a pretty extensive curriculum overview and have piloted the Collections Anthology, which is the sister program to the elementary. We had a lot of conversation about having a more systemic approach to our English Language Arts programming as a district, specifically pre-K to K-8. And so that's happening now with the adoption of Collections. We implemented a core novel program, a lot of work last year and over the summer working with the high school and the 5th grade to make sure that we could have a 3-novel system at every grade level, so they'll leave the middle school reading those 9 identified core novels as well as all of the other work that they'll do in Collections and in Reader's Workshop model. We piloted Wordly Wise as our Conventions of Standard English program. This year, it was a program that was already being used at a different level, and then we decided it wasn't really appropriate for the entire 3 grades, and so we most recently met with a representative from Zaner and Blosser and looked at the Grammar Usage and Mechanics program, so we're interested in piloting that as well. So a lot of work in English Language Arts. At the bottom of this page, you have heard a lot about NWAA's MAP assessments, either as school committee or as parents, and know that we're using that to progress monitor. One of the cooler things that we've done at the middle school is we partnered up with Edgenuity, as you've heard from the superintendent a couple times this year, and implemented the MyPath program, and it has been very successful as a supplemental individualized online program, and it's being used for struggling learners in real time, for right on par learners, and for advanced learners in the classroom as a supplemental program that teachers can have kids track their progress on, and it's been a fantastic resource. And if you recall, that connects directly to the MAP data. So when we give these kids progress monitoring, especially in the fall and in the winter, we can adjust our instruction and adjust our programming accordingly, and then also offer a differentiated approach using some 21st century programming with MyPath. On the next page, Steve. Again, a couple big changes in our continued ongoing efforts to implement strategies and programming related to meeting the needs of struggling learners. The biggest one was that we added a literacy lab model. This, again, is a sister program to our math lab. Very, very successful. Miss Jessica Stanton moved over from special ed with a reading specialist background, if you recall, for her first year here. Very, very proud of that program and her massive efforts. She did all of the heavy lifting there. After getting some supports and put the whole program together, researched best methodologies to put that together, and I'm excited about the MAP results, but I'm really excited to see the MCAS in the future for that particular cohort of students, so it'll be nice to see the impact of that. I do expect similar results over time that we've had with the math lab students, so similar to the math lab. I'm hoping that will really help out. And then we implemented the Edgenuity online learning program for a variety of students. We've used it for credit recovery, we've used it for homebound students, we've used it for students who've needed a break for social emotional purposes. You know, we've talked a lot about meeting the social emotional needs of our students, and sometimes we need alternative ways of doing that, and so we have successfully done that at the middle school with this online program and been able to offer supplemental programming, blended programming, or part-time programming for students who just, for whatever reason, weren't able to access the curriculum the way it was laid out originally. So we've talked a lot about professional development, so we can kind of skip over that. At the bottom of the other page, under climate and culture, we continue to play with our advisory program and try to make that better. A couple things that we did this year that we're very proud of. We got together as teams on the professional development days early in the year, and we redesigned all of our lessons to tie to the Littleton Public Schools core values and also connect to the research-based themes from Second Step. And so we did that in 2 or 3 chunks over time. So we've taken all of those research-based themes, we took our 4 core values and basically created crosswalks and then lesson plans individualized at the grade levels. And we really feel like that was a very beneficial move. Also, we bumped it up to a once-a-week model. This was our first year doing that. So we're going to be looking for feedback from students and teachers and all staff actually on that move as well. And then the final change this year that has been very cool is we've added, at the end of each trimester, an all-school celebration of success. The whole school comes together every trimester as advisories, but collectively to talk about the successes academically, socially, emotionally, through clubs, through athletics. We've had students perform. We had Ms. Fennebecker give a presentation about her time in Vietnam. Very, very warm and family and community spirit. We're actually ending the year with an all-school picnic. The entire school by advisors is going to go out with blankets. Each advisory this Monday coming up is planning their picnic. That will have some live music by our 8th grade musicians, and we'll have some picnic and some games, and so we'll give out some awards outdoors, and that's kind of the culminating activity this year for our climate and culture work at the middle school. And then that's really the 3 or 4 big highlights. There's a long list of technology that you guys are well informed about. But really it's been ELA, it's been curriculum moves in climate and culture that I'm really proud of this year. And I think moving forward, that's going to continue to be the focus for a little while.
Yep.
Thank you.
Well said. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Lane. Dr. Herring.
Oh, my over here.
Thank you very much. I join my colleagues in expressing a lot of pride in the faculty and staff and all their work throughout the past school year. And similarly, we have lots of accomplishments to note tonight. They are in the packet, so I'll keep in mind the time and the hour right now and skip around a bit and just highlight a few things and be brief on things, and we can follow up if you have questions. Just to go to the second piece there, we'll see develop. One of the goals on the curriculum was to develop and adopt a curriculum for a formal advisory program. It's a multi-year effort based on our the NEASC recommendations we had. And our school leadership team has been at work working on this for the last year. Dr. Tracy Turner has, as part of her administrative internship, has focused on this, and she is prepared to make recommendations for our school leadership team review next year. Nonetheless, our staff continue to do a wide variety of activities that benefit students and make connections between staff and students. And they're noted at the end of the report where you can see our extended advisories, all the different topics we covered with our students this year. We do intend next year to put more emphasis on social-emotional skills in our advisories, as well as a strong emphasis on executive functioning skills. As we recently had a staff training on that through Dr. Peg Dawson. It was well received, and we expect follow-up with that throughout next year and bringing that more to students. We also had an assembly with our 10th grade class in which they received a special focus on identifying their own executive skills, their strengths, their weaknesses, their areas for growth. So we expect follow-up with that. I'm also going to jump down and briefly note that we did implement the updated district curriculum accommodation plan. I know that there was a school committee meeting already dedicated to that topic, and so I won't say much more than just to say that we've implemented that, shared it with staff, and that we do expect to not survey the faculty this spring, but actually next spring because of its recent implementation for feedback. If we could go to the next piece where we'll see that we implemented procedures for students who are pursuing alternative credit options for physical education courses and credits. I once again thank the school committee for their support of this initiative. It was a very involved effort to get through the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, as well as just through different readings at school committee meetings. The school committee had asked for end of the year reporting results of how many students participated, and you'll find that in your report. 131 students total. 14 out of the 131 were non-LHS sports, primarily students who participated in dance. And they've been strong, they're actively involved in this and have been for years. And their dance programs are in many ways rival or surpass some of the commitment that our students put into their co-curricular sports, the interscholastic sports. So the results are there. I'm happy to follow up on that later. And we have also talked, I think Dr. Detweiler has given presentations about the need to design and implement a continuum of services for students with disabilities who need substantially separate programs with specially designed instruction. And we have now established a language-based disability program that's operational at the high school. A number of courses have been introduced at the high school that are new for us for the specialized students with these special needs. We also, I think it's been noted at previous school committee meetings of the year, and there was some press coverage of it, was the launch of the LHS Kitchen Bistro. That needs to be advanced as we get more programming available for students, more staff and educational assistants to help with that growth. We do hope to hire some type of vocational skill coordinator and a transition coordinator for special education, where someone who is particularly focused on helping students transition to post-secondary life who have really serious needs. And that should happen hopefully in the next year or two. And that should help with further expanding the kitchen and the bistro. We also, as been noted, I think some of the other schools, certainly the middle school, has developed an academic support center a couple of years ago. We've expanded upon that with the launch of a tutoring center that's operational and really thriving under the direction of Littleton resident Jen Feudo. And it has a very strong, Lisa will be happy to hear that, a very strong emphasis on executive skills. Students are just raving about it. They love the connection with that particular teacher and the support they get from tutors who are brought in, who volunteer, who come in. And we also have a number of our upperclassmen who tutor in the tutoring center. So we're happy to see that at the high school. We'll skip down. There's a lot of things that you can tell. This isn't even all the school improvement plan, this packet. I had to leave things out. There's lots of things happening at each and every building. We provided additional professional development sessions and opportunities for integrating instructional technology. I want to thank Mike McGeckern and the tech team. I know that has been covered at previous school committee meetings. We're very proud of the Tiger Tech Summit that was held at the high school this year. It was the first annual one. We expect to continue that. It's a district-wide tech initiative for training all the staff in instructional technology, and I think that was done on the election day in November. And our district is becoming well-known across the state for its participation in MassQ at Gillette Stadium. It's a conference held every October. We have with the support of the superintendent who's really pushed for this. We sent a really strong delegation of staff from every building to the MassQ conference, and a number of our staff are presenters there and are now being recognized for that in their implementation of technology. The examples of some of the things we've done this year are in the report for your reading. We are also looking forward, the high school, to hosting a district-wide Google Summit, but it's actually regional. It's beyond that. It's open to anyone, really, but it's a district-sponsored initiative that the high school is hosting, and it's in the first week in August, and that should be quite something to report out on after we've hosted that. Skip down to the professional development section. We have covered this as well at previous school committee meetings. There's a lengthy list of some of the things our faculty, you can see the wide range of activities and the strength of the activities our faculty have engaged in throughout the year. A number of topics are listed there, and we're very pleased to report that there's a really vibrant professional development program at the high school and also throughout the district. And I want to just take a moment just briefly to thank Mark Branco. Dr. Branco was instrumental in redesigning our professional development program in concert with Dr. Jamian. He had done his dissertation on this, and I think that's part of his legacy that he leaves to the district. And then I'll go down just below. I hope I'm not moving too fast, but we continue to convene our Bell Schedule Study Group. This has been something we've been trying to hash through the faculty, and we've finally come to, we think, some consensus around recommendations for a Bell schedule. The faculty have not voted on it, but there has been a presentation, and just informally, there's a lot of support for one particular schedule. But the schedule, we met with the superintendent earlier this year to discuss the Bell schedule. The implementation of that Bell schedule would be contingent upon the hiring of additional staff. So it's in a holding pattern right now. I think it has to be formulated in conjunction with the superintendent and the school committee for what the launch date would be, because it would be dependent on some budget requests, approval of budget requests for staffing. But there's a lot of support for it among the faculty. We think, and what we'd like to do at some point, perhaps in the early fall, is come to you and have the faculty who led this Bell Schedule Study Group come and present to you what the pros and cons are of different scenarios and why they're particularly supportive of the one that is standing out right now. And I won't go into detail on that because we can save that for the fall. It's not something that's going to launch anytime soon. But we'd like to launch it. Okay, and then just going down, I'd like to call the assistant principal, Mr. Keith Comeau, to come up and just briefly talk about his work this past year. I'm very appreciative of Keith's work. He's done a fine job in the role as assistant principal this past year. And one of the things he's been instrumental in two particular initiatives. One is the launch of our work study program, the formalizing of it. It was a very informal program, sort of like the Littleton Way. We meet with someone from the town, the community that we knew, and there was a lot of the things we would arrange were based on trust and verbal agreements and things like that. Follow through was all based on relationship. We now have a very well documented program. We needed to do this, it's just for all kinds of reasons, but and Keith will talk more about that. So, you want to hand something?
Yeah, actually, I brought copies of the new program for the work study just for you guys to look at. Okay. One thing I started to look at when I first, undertook this initiative was working with the guidance department and what they've already done over the past couple of years. And we've had students this year doing work studies and internships at the police department, and as well as doing work studies or internships in things like interior design or construction, auto shops, those types of things. And we're looking to expand our opportunities for our students to get real-life experience through either work studies or internships. I already have talked with a handful of students for next year going to the fire department for internships. I think we have 2 young ladies doing that next year. Police department, again, construction, a lot of the same types of jobs. But one of the big things I looked at was trying to formalize the program and having the work experience, but also a study part experience as part of this program. And I found a school in Ohio which had a very well-established program. It was William Henry Harrison High School in Harrison, Ohio. And I called their principal, Davis Baker, and talked to him a little bit about their program and how they implemented their program. I actually asked for permission to borrow some of his materials and some of his form letters, which I tailored to the laws in Massachusetts are different from laws in Ohio, so I had to look at the regulations that we need to follow in order to implement our program here. And so a lot of the letters that you see here and the structure is borrowed from Davis Baker in Ohio. Another, step I looked at was in down the bottom on the first page, you see grade determination. How are we going to grade these kids? Part of it is through the work-based learning program from the state, from the DESC. They have a rubric that's attached in the back, in which they're developing foundational skills in all students in every job, things like punctuality and professionalism, those types of things, but also identifying skills specific to each individual workplace. And so as you work through the packet, you'll see there's a blank form where students would talk to the supervisor at their job and identify skills that they'll be working on in their internship or work study that are very specific to that field. And so the supervisor would grade the students based on that work plan. Once a term, twice a term kind of thing. The other piece which I would like to, I guess, expand this program to is having an in-school portion of this, a seminar type portion of the work study program. And I reached out to one of my former college teammates who works at Norwood High School, who runs their alternative school. They do a lot of work with placing students in the community in work study type situations. And I, again, talked about his in-school curriculum, how he supplements the work experience of the students. And that piece of it, I think, is still, we have to hash that out of how we're going to actually implement that this coming year. It'll probably fall on me to supervise a lot of these projects and a lot of these students in the workplace, whether doing a site visit or talking with the supervisors in the actual workplace, or overseeing the in-school piece and looking at the projects that the students put together, documenting their experience. So that's kind of what's going on right now, but also kind of what I'm looking at in the future for this work study internship program. The other initiative, if you move down on the school improvement plan, is the developing partnerships with the colleges and universities in the area. I know we had a presentation a couple months ago from Ellen Grondine from Middlesex Community College and developing a dual enrollment program with them. An update on that, as of right now, we're looking at doing the AccuPlacer exam in the next couple of weeks. We're putting together a notification to students and parents about the opportunity for dual enrollment this coming fall at the high school. We've identified courses that would be dual enrollment: Latin 5, Spanish 4, AP Statistics, and we're still looking at a physics option. I have to talk with Dan Hogan a little bit more about his vision for the physics program for dual enrollment. But we'd be identifying the students who selected those courses and bringing them together, notifying their parents about the benefits that we see in the dual enrollment program, and then doing the AccuPlacer at the school for no cost to the students to help them qualify for the dual enrollment credit. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate all the work that Keith has done on that to bring those two goals to accomplish those two goals at the high school. We also, I'll just briefly mention to close out, there's an extensive collaboration with the business manager and facilities director to address different school facility needs. And these were listed, there were some specifics in the school improvement plan. And I just want to acknowledge and thank Steve and Bill Maher for their help with accomplishing a number of these things, never mind the flood we had, the February 14th Valentine's Day flood, and all their work on that. Aside from that, before the flood and all the news around that, and changing classrooms and changing floors, we had some goals related to the short-term patching of the roof, which was really cumbersome and was more involved than we thought. Then we had some long-term roof repairs that we had to take care of, and there were problems associated with that where we had to keep having people come back throughout the year. But it's done. I think we haven't had any issues, Steve, since.
Knock on wood, don't jinx it.
Installation of new cameras. Also, Steve had worked closely with the camera company to have a new vendor come in and install cameras, and they've been working very well. We've gotten excellent feedback from the Littleton Police Department, our SRO, about the cameras, and of course they were instrumental in solving some cases recently. The redesign of the kitchen and the lunchroom for the lab program, that was done. Dr. Detweiler was very helpful with that, but Bill and Steve, again, were instrumental. And then, of course, at town meeting, we appreciate the support of the community for lockers, for the locker room. We do expect to come back with another proposal through our capital plan for locker rooms at some point in the future for the girls. I think I talked to the athletic director today, and we think that's important, just at this point, 16 years or so into the high school, to also have, making sure the facilities are of the proper grade for both genders. And then the Kiva is going to go through a major change. There's going to be an improvement to more auditorium-style seating, much more comfortable for students and more durable. They should have a longer life. Alex, you can remember when you were a student there that the Kiva was there was some parts that were in disrepair even when you may have attended classes in that room at one point or another. So that's a long time coming. We appreciate the support of the town for the Kiva renovation. And then, of course, we appreciate the Kimball Fund for their help with the planned library modernization. It's under the guise of an innovation center, but new furnishings and really a renovation to the library that will help to allow us for more collaborative workspaces for students and staff where they can work on different projects and in keeping with more modern-day instructional strategies. So that's something that is a work in progress. There's a whole timetable and list of tasks that need to be developed. The watchwords I've shared with the committee for this project are patience and pace and keeping our poise throughout it, because there's a sense that some people want it done already, and it doesn't work that way with all these other competing projects in a small district with limited personnel and limited time to get everything done. So we're going to have to come up with a timetable to really manage that project, because we're trying to also keep the high school fully operational so that it doesn't impact student learning and student access. That's something that is still in the works, and you'll be getting an update about that probably in the fall. And then lastly, I just want to thank Liz Barry and Dave Riley and the whole team that contributed to the achievement of the Green Ribbon School status. We had that as a school improvement goal, but we did even better. The whole district got it. And so I want to recognize the district and the superintendent for helping us to accomplish that goal. And that about wraps up my report for tonight.
Thank you. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's tons.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff going on. Thanks, Keith, as well, for doing that. I remember when I was up at high school, I did both an internship and a dual enrollment program.
Yes,
and,
yeah.
It was one of those meetings where it was very case-by-case basis, which was nice, but it's also nice to finally have this work done and in good order. So, thank you.
All set, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Harrington. Thank you. All right.
Actually, Dr. Harrington, you might as well stay up here, because we're going to reverse the order on the handbooks.
Okay.
Every year, the school committee approves the changes in the school-based handbooks. The major focus was the dress code policy to ensure that it was aligned with current law. And there's also a few attendance tweaking that occurred in the documents. I found some discrepancies in terms of definitions within the various manuals for excused and unexcusable absences. I wanted to ensure that those definitions were universal K through 12. So.
Okay. I'll just talk briefly. I didn't see the dress code language necessarily in the packet for the high school. We didn't make any significant changes other than to make it more gender neutral. There were the 5 Bs that were in there in the past. You may be familiar with that. Were eliminated, and I don't see it. I don't think it's not sure.
It wasn't make it. No, it didn't.
It wasn't in the packet, but we didn't submit it. Yeah. So, but I do have a copy of it right here if you want me to read it to you. It's very much the same language as we've had before, and just I think for the purposes of the school committee record, I'll just read it briefly. We take pride in the appearance of our students. The dress of our students in many ways reflects the sense of purpose and quality of our school. Students are to dress neatly, cleanly, and appropriately while in attendance. Expressive clothing that causes disruption or disorder is not allowed on school grounds. Hoods may not be worn in the upright position. Hats may be worn. Per order of the Board of Health, footwear must be worn in the school building at all times. Clothing promoting alcohol, tobacco products, or drugs, guns, weapons, or violence are not permitted. Students who do not comply with the dress code may be asked to call home and remain in the office until appropriate clothes are brought to school. Questions or concerns about dress code should be directed to the assistant principal and/or principal. And then we added, that's the dress code that we're proposing, which is very much in line with what we've had prior. We weren't asked to make major changes, just we thought, though, as a school council that we spent a lot of time on the dress code, as a school council discussing different options, and we looked at the middle school version as well. And we just wanted to make sure that it was gender neutral. The other piece that we added, though, was Massachusetts general law, and it's literally right from the statute. School officials shall not abridge the rights of students as to personal dress and appearance, except if such officials determine that such personal dress and appearance violate reasonable standards of health, safety, and cleanliness. That was something that we thought was important to add. So students would know, be aware of what their rights were. And so that's the dress code for the high school. In terms of other handbook changes, we simply had, aside from making sure that the language is consistent for attendance per the new statutory requirements, we wanted to make sure that we're all aligned across the board with our attendance policy, pupil, the attendance notification process. We also added Saturday detention next year. Mr. Camo has been willing to step forward to oversee this effort, and we also have a couple of teachers who are willing to help out with it. It would be probably at least twice a month.
Yeah, that's the
And
plan.
as a consequence, beyond detention, but short of suspension, gives us another...
Song in my head.
Yeah.
In my head. It's not a song. Why is it really the Saturday the 10th?
I think they...
Played it on
The seniors played, that could have been their class gift. They played it as their song as they finished up the graduation. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
From the Breakfast Club is what you're thinking of, yeah.
Yes.
So yes, the Saturday detention will be resumed at the high school. It's actually not...
Theory, right? We're in theory.
If
Hopefully in
needed.
practice, we won't
We may not even need to apply it, but it's available to us. It has been on the books in past years. It was not there in the this past year's handbook, but it is in the teacher's contract as something where they can be paid for it, and that's still in there. And so we do expect that there'll be some teacher support, teacher supervision, so it won't all fall on Mr. Camo with his young family every Saturday.
Every other Saturday.
Every other Saturday.
If you do it like that, then there's no...
We'll all send our kids over.
The character.
Only time enough, are you kidding?
So
He'll bring his kids and make them babies.
we do think it will be helpful to motivate some students to change certain things.
Just to jump in there real quick, one area that we really targeted for Saturday detention would be to help remedy the tardy problem that we've seen a little bit. After-school detention hasn't really been enforcing what we wanted to enforce and changing behavior. So inconveniencing the kids a little bit by having them come in on Saturday, we feel will be a much bigger step in the right direction to help remedy the tardies.
They won't be able, like in the movie, they won't be able to roam the school. They will be...
That's why there's no potential for conflict.
No, they will be expected to do their homework or schoolwork over the weekend. But they'll get it all done on Saturday morning.
Do we want to vote these individually or collectively? We'll give a chance for questions. I just want to think about that before we...
Let's, I think because this year we were focusing on dress code, I think we should vote them separately.
Okay. Before we go ahead and do that, questions or comments, Alex?
So I have comments about the dress code, but because it's I was thinking I'd wait till the end of all four to make those comments about the dress code.
We can do the vote. I don't mind doing the votes in sequence all at once.
Okay.
I just wanted to get clarification where we're going to vote them.
Right.
Okay.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Is the Saturday detention aimed at reducing the need to suspend while still having something
We
beyond?
hope it gives us another alternative to that. And in school suspension, it allows us to keep kids in class more.
That's good. I really like that. Because I know years and years ago, the district was sort of detention and then suspension, and those were your two options. And if this problem with suspension, it does take the kids out of the classroom. So
We do more within school suspension now than we have in the past as well, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good. Mike, questions or comments?
Yeah, I think I'm fine for now.
Okay.
I would just say that we have Saturday detention in my school district, and it's been pretty effective, and kids do not like to receive it, so they feel very inconvenienced by it, so hopefully you'll have some success.
I hope so.
Thank you.
So I'll start with the attendance policy. As the superintendent said, we had gone over as an administrative team, basically some discrepancies in language and differences in practice from school to school, and we had heard that that made it difficult from a parent perspective, obviously. So if you look at the middle school attendance policy, some of the major changes was cleaned up the language around excused and unexcused, kept the language around all absences counted towards the number of absences. That was not really explicitly stated in the first round over the years here. The work completion language is cleaned up a little bit. We didn't want to leave that at the discretion necessarily of people to make decisions around that, so we wanted that to be pretty explicit that, you know, you're absent, that doesn't penalize you from a work completion standpoint. And there's a difference between missing school and truancy and cutting class, so we wanted to make that really clear in this particular section. Tardy to school, believe it or not, actually was a big conversation at the middle school. I will say this as respectfully as possible. It's hard to believe how, in most cases, it's a middle school child's fault that a kid's tardy to school because they're not driving yet, with the exception of a few walkers or a few bicycle riders or hovercraft riders or however they get into school nowadays.
Solar car
Right,
riders.
right, you never know.
Right, driverless car riders, I mean, they could hack the system.
So, you know, that was a fascinating conversation with parents and staff members in the room together that we navigated. And so we talked about that, and then we talked about the practice. And if you've ever tried to drop a child off at a school that is on Russell Street, you know, Russell Street gets busy, and all of a sudden it's all backed up. And so the practice of getting a student to the school for a 7:20 start, and what that really looks like in Littleton, and what was officially tardy and isn't. So if you look at the language under tardy, this is considerably rewritten. Student arriving to first period. And that was a student arriving to school in the previous iteration. And then our computer system and attendance system gives teachers the ability to take period attendance. We don't take period attendance electronically at the middle school, but what was happening unbeknownst to us in the office was Ms. Garvey was taking attendance. People were taking attendance on the other end in the morning, thought they were being helpful, and then there was crossing up our tardy data. And so I was doing tardy audits at the end of every trimester and couldn't figure out why that was so daunting. And I took a little while to figure it out, apparently, but we figured it out. So now it's new language. So if the child is late to flex block, to that first period, they're considered tardy. They can report down to the office. They sign in, the tardy slip is issued, and Ms. Garvey or whoever's doing attendance in the office will make that the official statement in the student record electronically. The other reason this is important is when I send out that letter, make that phone call and say, Mr. Baker, your child's been absent 15 times, and you say that's impossible. She gets on the bus every day. And then you and I have a conversation about what she's doing for that 9 or 10 or 11 minutes in the morning, who she's visiting, where she's hanging out, walking around. That's when middle school students can be tardy. They're already here. But they're making bad choices in the morning, and they're suddenly not in the right location at 7:20. So I'm happy to say that this theoretically cleans all of that up, and Ms. Garvey is the professional in this area for me, and she was instrumental in helping us do that work. So that's the bulk of the change there, bless you, on the attendance. The dress code obviously was the bulk of our focus for a good 3 to 4 months, at least November through February, and some of our March work as well. The middle school council did a thorough review of research articles on this topic, probably half a dozen to a dozen legal briefs. We studied about half a dozen pieces of case law, mass and federal law, and then reviewed a number of schools, in-state and out-of-state, and their dress code languages and formatting. And I'm really proud of the particular code that's in front of you. I think it has met all of the necessary requirements and changes that we were looking for as a school and a district. It does, as Dr. Harrington states right in the first paragraph, cites the law. It talks about, my favorite line here, the conventions. Due consideration to popular convention. So what we're saying there is, students should be able to dress the way students dress in today's world. If you grew up in the 60s, you dressed one way, and you grew up in the 70s, you dressed another way. And we understand that that's important to students. And then I'd like to thank Mr. Baker, who's kind of our representative in all things policy related, and he had made some nice suggestions as we ran this by him as a parent and a school committee member as well. And so we have some language in there about the Littleton Community Conventions. I'd like to say publicly that the parents on the school council really felt it was important that these dress codes upheld the values that represent Littleton as a community. And so that's that second piece of language in the first paragraph. So that first paragraph is the suggestive language. that we're hoping people would follow as an advisory. That second paragraph is the non-negotiable explicit language around clothing and jewelry denoting certain types of things, and that's where the hoods in the upright position and the hats being worn and the footwear clarifiers are. Basically, the next 3 or 4 paragraphs, again, we felt it was important at the middle school, and this is where we might differ from school to school, to be transparent with our process. We've had conversations with parents in the past that say, well, geez, we weren't aware that there was a first warning or that this would result in a second offense kind of a situation. So we figured as a school council that our practice at the middle school was just to put that right out there for everybody to understand that this is exactly what process we'll follow. So we were transparent about that. So very proud of the work. As 2 brand-new school council members said as politely as they could, they were not aware that they were going to undertake this amount of heavy lifting right out of the gate in their first year. And so I do want to thank the school council publicly. We actually had a couple new teachers join the school council too. So to jump right into 2 heavy handbook changes in 1 year was pretty daunting for some of them, but they did a lot of work, and I'm proud of that work.
I'm going to ask, just thinking about the hour, can we take care of the middle school and high school tonight, and can we push the Shaker Lane and Russell Street to, I know we need these done before the school year starts, right?
Right.
Do we mind maybe doing them quickly during the retreat or
2 or 3 minutes.
They're really quick.
All right, go ahead.
They're-
Real quick.
Yeah, they hardly did it.
Okay, that's fine.
Thanks.
Thanks, boss. Because they were so good at what they did ahead of time. you know?
Oh, Rich? Oh, Rich, he hardly doesn't.
The positive light, sorry.
Yeah, that's.
They were closely aligned.
Did nothing. You got that?
Erase that part of the tape.
As Kelly alluded, we had the benefit of the hard work of the middle school on both the dress code and their attendance policy when we took a look at it, and we felt that we wanted to be developmentally appropriate, but as vertically as consistent as possible. I think you'll see a pretty significant similarity between the Russell Street dress code and attendance policy and the one at the middle school. The only other things that I would add is, as we went through our handbook cover to cover, we added a section on responsive classroom. We wanted to highlight the positive nature of student behavior and citizenship development that we really believe in. There's a whole bunch in our handbook about consequences and levels and those kinds of things. We wanted to get out there that really we think trying to help students proactively before there's conflict and behavior problems is really what we're about. And in line with that, we changed a lot of our language that said will to may to allow us some flexibility to work with students on an individual basis and to recognize that a formal consequence isn't always the best way to handle a behavior problem or a conflict, and often sort of social justice and those types of things, communication with others and restitution, and there's lots of ways to handle student conduct, and I think the handbook was written in a way that really tied my hands when it indicated, this will happen if one of these things happen, and I want to make sure that we have the flexibility to work with students developmentally in a way that makes sense for them.
Thank you.
Just really quickly, I love the responsive classroom piece.
Great.
And I know we don't have the time to talk about it, but I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
Ditto. No, you have them in front of you. Yeah, it's okay, because we know, Scott and I, we know we're allowed. The only changes in the Shaker Lane School Handbook were on the dress code and the absence from school procedure. The absence from school procedure, I just moved a few things around in that paragraph and added some mays instead of will occurs. Again, looking at, developmental practice, it's not the students who are responsible for their tardiness or their absences from school, usually. Dress code, cleaned up the language to meet new legal requirements, piggybacked it on the Russell Street and the middle school dress codes as well. That's it.
Thank you. All right, questions, comments? Alex, go ahead.
Do you want me to just add the dress code?
Whatever you got.
So I wanted to hold off because the dress codes are all the same for each of them, which I think is awesome that we're trying to be consistent throughout. I did have a couple concerns, but I definitely think it's a big improvement over what we had before, and the different well, I won't rehash what was, I'll just talk about what is. The first sentence, we take pride in the appearance of our students whose dress in many ways reflects the sense of purpose and quality of our school. I see where everyone's coming from with that, but if you flip it, does that mean a student who dresses better has more purpose or has a better added quality to the school because they dress better? Obviously not. But if we're talking about kids who have more or less resources,
No, so it's not about beautiful clothing versus less expensive clothing as much as it really is about the concept of, teaching children as appropriately as possible that there's a socially appropriate way to present yourself based on your setting. When you're going to church, when you're going to work, when you're going to the beach.
Mhm.
And school kind of represents work for children. And so that's how the parents on the school council, the middle school, interpret that language.
Mhm.
And that's why they chose to leave it, because that actually is a good language.
And I definitely sense that it's coming from a good place. It does make me feel really awkward when we talk about the sense of purpose and quality of our school, and then how the appearance of our students.
Yeah, so the
reflects that.
representatives of your community didn't feel that way. That just polite put that the parents didn't, the students didn't. We actually, I didn't talk a lot about the process with the kids. We actually vetted this out through the student council as well at the middle school, and the student council was very instrumental in kicking back some ideas to us as well.
So that was one concern I had. The other major concern I had was fully exposed shoulders.
So that was a really careful, I'm deferring to, is anyone left in the room? That was a very carefully phrased statement with moms and dads and adults in the room to talk about how to not say other things. The research shows you don't name, you try your best to not name certain body parts, and you try your best to not name types of clothing, like straps or bra straps, or we had to do it at the bottom part of the body level for clarity purposes.
Mhm.
But it was to make it gender neutral. If you don't say it that way, you almost can't be gender neutral.
I guess, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to pick up, so is the intent behind that language to say that any type of, when you mean fully exposed shoulders, you mean like tank tops?
Like a tube
all
top,
that
I
stuff?
guess, is the appropriate.
So would a tank top be a fully exposed shoulder? So you literally mean fully exposed?
That's why,
Okay.
yeah, that's why we.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I.
Literally,
Yeah.
yeah. Now, remember, that's the suggestive language in paragraph 1 as well. That's under the Littleton Community Convention piece.
Yeah.
So that's a recommended section of the.
And that was based on the input that you received from the parents
Yep.
and your community input on
Right,
that.
that they felt that upholds the values of Littleton to the best of our abilities.
Because when I read it, I thought I was under the impression that my full shoulder was this part and then a tank top.
Well, so what we talked about too is that admin team is there's going to be education around this, right? So each principal, when you go over rules and responsibilities and stuff in your building level, we always have class meetings at the middle school and appropriate hallway behaviors, and so this is going to roll into your introductory stuff with students to talk about what it really means, and it potentially will have to be rolled out to parents at back to school night if there are questions, or through a memo, through weekend updates, that kind of stuff. So there's going to be a little bit of language education around this too.
It has to be blended with the next sentence. I was hung up on that sentence as a superintendent. And when I sent it to Darrell after I had a conversation with Principal Branco. And my directive, I'm going to use a strong word this evening, was to ensure that this policy fell within the parameters of the law. And to the point where if a principal goes outside the law, I'm not going to back them. And they don't want that. So it's imperative that before action be taken, that it's either disruptive or distracting. So that has to be in combination. And for me, Alex, I had to let go of those descriptors a bit because it was a community convention. But that is not saying that if a student violates that, unless it's proven to be disruptive or distracting, there should not be discipline.
And just to thank you, to finalize that thought, disruption and disorder to the educational process. So if a child's sitting there with a particular type of clothing and education is happening, and the classroom's cranking, you keep teaching, the kids keep learning. That's the simple language we've used at the faculty level. If education is happening and your ability to do your job and educate is not being disrupted, and the student's ability to be educated is not being disrupted, then we're good to go.
And then the last piece I had was hoods may not be worn in the upright position.
Correct.
That seems to conflict with the legal standard.
So when we read legal briefs, it didn't, based on Columbine, Banks, where hoods, people said that hoods could be used to pull and cover the face and the hats can't. And in this day and age of security cameras in our schools and in all public buildings, the hoods become very problematic around that. So the legal briefs told us it falls under safety.
Even with the Pile V South Hadley standard, which is the state standard, which is higher?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate we live in a very different world today, but wearing hoods is considered a safety hazard, because if somebody gets into your school, it's going to be hard to identify. So
Students were good with
it's
it.
considered to be a safety risk.
And students understood that at the student council level, and they celebrated the hats practically at middle school. but they understood hoods.
Okay. Thank you for shouldering this responsibility.
I know we don't have a lot of time, but I want to thank you, Mark, not only for everything about tonight and the fact you're leaving, but this is a heavy lift to take on, and you did a very, very bridged manner. And it's unfortunate that I think that this is the. Are you presenting the Canby Lake Park thing?
I guess so.
All right. That's a better way to go off on like your last presentation before the school.
On a roller coaster.
My concern about the shoulder thing is now, more resolved. I was under the impression that that was to prevent tank tops, and I was worried about consistent of application, because I'm under the impression that boys probably wear tank tops things all the time. So I'm happy to hear that that's the way it is, and I'm comfortable with your interpretation of the law there, which is that, as long as education was going on, it's not our job as a school is to get involved in that. The hood and the hat thing is a little bit different. That was a crusade that I had when I was at the high school for the hat thing. The logic behind it is sound, right? The hats, it's exactly what you said. You disappear. Someone comes in, commits a crime in the school, you disappear into a crowd, never to be seen again. There obviously is a safety different. It's a little bit different with hats. It's still very, gray line, but it's the concern, I think, is warranted to have it in there. And to your point, it's not going to be, I assume, I'm not going to try and predict what would happen, but some kid's walking down the hall at 8 a.m. with the hood over his head, he's probably not going to get, someone's not going to yank it off his head.
No, he's just going to be told to put it down.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm...
No SWAT team on standby?
I am comfortable. I actually agree with Alex. I thought some of the wording was a little bit awkward with some of it, but it's, I don't want to disrupt the apple cart. If it's been vetted by, sufficiently, we've talked about the process that this went through, so as long as it, passed the blush test with other people, I'm comfortable with it.
This conversation made me a lot more comfortable with it than I was walking into this meeting. So that, I don't know if that will be good feedback. Maybe not for you, but next year for your successor. That conversation was helpful. Real quick, I know everyone else probably has a comment, but on that last hood note, are we making exceptions for religious clothing?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
always a given.
Okay.
I would just like to reiterate the process, that this was not done in a vacuum by a principal of a building, that there was appropriate input for parents at the lower levels, and then certainly the introduction of student input at the higher levels. Whenever you write something down, you're not going to please everyone or get it right. And the goal is not to there is no right. Does it work? That's in it. It needs to be revisited. We did revisit something that we maybe had left untouched a little too long. But I think the real takeaway is that this was a process, a community-based process, vetted by Mass statute and philosophically striving for what the ultimate goal is, which is to allow the teachers to teach and the students to learn. So I think if we all as a community understand that, then the differences of how we interpret particular words and things, we can work around and work together to make it fit the philosophy, and I think we'll be fine. So I appreciate all the work. I'm glad we got through that. We need a series of motions.
You prefer that these happen individually?
No, it's 10 after 10.
I mean, it's quick to do that. As long as it's
just
logic
because
behind
the
it.
dress
Take 2
codes
seconds.
aren't identical,
Let's
I
go.
think it would
Let's
be
do it.
a good thing.
I make a motion to accept the high school, student handbook as presented. Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None?
Make a motion to accept the middle school handbook, student handbook as presented.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None?
Make a motion to accept the Russell Street student handbook as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? None?
And I make a motion to accept the Shaker Lane
Student handbook. I thought you had that.
as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you.
I'm gonna make you read. Oh wait, I can't make you read policy.
I'm off the hook now.
All right. Canopy Lake.
I'll get them in September, Errol.
This is our annual request for the 6th grade to go to Canopy Lake for their end-of-the-year trip to celebrate all of the success and wonderful things that have happened as a class. It's a fantastic time every year, and we have a nice partnership going up with Canopy Lake this year. And we've been able to reduce some costs in a couple of the past field trips recently, which has been really nice due to some programs like Enterprising People and some of the other work that we do with students that help us put money into our Student Activities Fund every year. So this year we took a look at that Student Activities account and where the money was coming from out of the 6th grade and decided that that would be a nice way to reduce some costs as well as cover all the scholarship needs that we had. So all students who would like to go will be able to go.
All right, so because this is an out-of-state trip for our policy, we do need a motion to approve it.
Make a motion to approve the Canopy Lake field trip on June 15th. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Mark Branco, we got a piece of official business in front of the school committee. Now you have a piece of official business in the district.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Moving on to old business. MASC resolution. Darrell Baker. What do you got for us?
So in your packet, I have my final version of, well, with one typo that was identified to me. I had a March vacation instead of February vacation listed twice there. Earlier, a couple weeks in the process, I sent out a copy of that to the MASC mailing list. It was interesting. There was about 30 or so responses of it, just quite a few different opinions from it. I also got feedback from Glenn Kuchar at MASC on some revisions to the piece there, and I've incorporated all of the comments that I've received and present this as the final draft. There, what I'd seek tonight would be for the committee to approve submitting this as an informal resolution to the MASC Board of Directors, and then also authorization to represent that this is a position of the Littleton School Committee in soliciting other districts' support for the resolution.
All right. Any comments?
I think you did a really good job here in providing context for why this is an endeavor worth taking on. I don't know if there's any other feedback you want from us other than endorsing.
That would be great.
No, I think this is good. Yeah. Good. I had a couple other small, tiny things that were irrelevant. So.
My favorite sentence of this is, no identified peer-reviewed research was found to support the need of February vacation as a flu germ control mechanism. Really,
hey, it's true. No peer.
I think
It's just a legend.
All right.
So I have more history on that.
Good. Matt?
I'm good.
All right.
We'll say after for that part.
All right.
So, Darryl, what do you want? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, motion, yeah.
Well, yeah, so do you want a motion both to?
It's in the packet.
You're the best. I love my pre-authored motions.
Yeah, you could just read it
Now I
instead of
can't
remember
find
school
it.
improvement plan versus.
All right, yeah, so I make motion to make a motion that the Littleton School Committee approves to submit the informal resolution, establish a working group to study a single spring vacation to the MASC Board of Directors for consideration at the 2016 MASC conference. Furthermore, to authorize members to contact other districts on behalf of the district to gain support, to have the resolution presented as a formal resolution.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion made and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right, superintendent evaluation. So we have the formal evaluation that I have signed, which Kelly will take back and file. But also what we did prior to the beginning of the open meeting, or just immediately after the beginning of the open meeting, we adjourned into executive session to discuss contract negotiations for the superintendent. And what we came to a resolution on was to, an addendum to the superintendent's contract with 4 items. The contract will be hereby extended by 1 year for a total of 3 years, running from July 1st, 2016 to June 30, 2019. That's very standard. The superintendents are all employed on kind of a rolling 3-year contract, and assuming that all parties are satisfied each year, we just tag another year on and just keep it rolling for 3 years, so that's pretty standard. Second item was to authorize tuition reimbursement of $4,500 for the 2016-2017 contract year. This is an existing benefit that the superintendent has taken advantage of as he completes his doctoral work. So we're just going to continue with that reimbursement. Number 3, a 3% salary increase from $151,681 to $156,232 effective July 1st, 2016, which is an increase of $4,551. And we discussed that, and we had some information relative to where the Littleton superintendent's salary falls compared to other surrounding. Now, this is just salary, not total compensation, but where that salary marker falls relative to other districts, and we felt very comfortable that the current salary, or the new salary of $156,232 is on the scale. It is not at the bottom. It is certainly not at the top. But we were very comfortable with that. We're also, the 3% salary increase, the overall sort of adjusted salary increase for town employees is really kind of 3.5% per year. And I appreciate Mr. Clenchey, when I talked to him prior to our executive session, talking about potential changes to the contract. I'm going to paraphrase slightly. He said that I'm not comfortable for asking for more than I can offer to my employees that I supervise. So we all appreciated that. The fourth and last item was to have a $5,000 existing annuity moved into salary, so that it will be considered as part of the retirement income calculation. This used to be the practice that annuities were part of the retirement calculation. In 2012, that was changed, and they no longer are. So again, this has not changed. The annuity, the $5,000 annuity amount was already in the compensation package. It's just changing how we're accounting for that. It's going to go into salary, which will then be moved into an annuity, is the superintendent's intention, but that's for his retirement planning, not ours. But it does get him in line, his compensation package in line relative to retirement calculations that as other districts already have done. We discussed it, and we came to a consensus on it. We're going to accept all those as the addendum. We will take a motion, but before we do the motion, does anybody have any other comments or input on this addendum? Alex?
No.
I would like to clarify, Matt Hunt did not participate in this. We felt that because he's so new to the board, and this is really a reflection of Mr. Clenchey's work for the past year, which Matt wasn't on the committee with, so this was a 4-person effort. All right, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. You don't mind me having
No,
no
that's
cheat
fine.
sheet here. I make a motion to amend superintendent's contract with the following terms to add 1 year to the term to June 30th, 2019, to authorize tuition reimbursement of $4,500 for the 2016-2017 contract year, to convert the $5,000 annuity into salary, so it may be considered as part of his retirement income calculation, and a salary increase of $4,551, effective July 1st, 2016.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Is this a roll call vote?
I don't know, is this a roll call? I don't think.
No, I don't think so. We're out of executive session.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Please reflect that those are 4 ayes, and Matt Hunt will not take a position on this vote. It's not an abstention, it's just not, you're not going to participate. All right, thank you. Budget visioning. Oh, thank God we already did that. All right.
You do it again?
No, we're not going to do it again.
Anyone else want to take another, Lisa, one more
Don't
time?
be surprised, Lisa, when I don't have any more interested citizen input. Don't take it
No, I have
personally.
one-
think
one
we only have-
request.
All right, I'll let you have
I
one
just have
thing.
one request.
But we're not there
We're
yet.
not there yet.
Yeah.
Mike, we have like 3 minutes.
Yeah, superintendent's report, it's all in our packet.
You bet.
Although, we do have one thing we need to do. Appointment of a school committee member to the middle school principal search committee. I talked to Matt about it. He has the bandwidth to do it, correct?
Yep.
And would like to participate in that. I don't know, if we need to vote on that, or I think we can just reach a consensus on that.
Reach a consensus.
Yeah, that's fine. You good with that? All right, thank you, Matt, appreciate that. That's an important piece of work coming up. Interested citizens, you gotta be real quick.
Yeah, I just want to request that a CPAC member be considered for the principal search committee.
They're
We
on
have
there,
been
it's on the
that.
list. It's already,
Okay,
it's
all right.
specifically on
All
that.
right, no, because we've been on them before, and I wasn't sure if it was considered.
10-second soundbite. I met with 2 co-chairs I appointed for the search committee, and letters went out today to staff and parents, so for asking for interested people to serve on the committee.
But it has specific,
Okay, I
and
was
CPAC
just
is
wondering
one of
if
them.
it was,
CPAC
if we
is
could
one of those.
consider.
CPAC parent is one of them.
Great, thank you
Okay.
very much. And we have a meeting coming up on Tuesday, so we'll discuss and figure out who can do that. And if I can find out what the commitment is, so that we make sure we have somebody who can fully participate. Great, thank you very much.
All right, we're gonna skip budget and policy. Does PMDC, is there anything outstanding that you feel like you really need to get out to us?
Just on the relative to the track, we're still pursuing with the companies about what's the cause of the underlying failure, and we're still pursuing resolution of those issues there. I have more detail, but we can just go into that. I have a conflict, a family conflict that shows up on August 18th, so I don't know if there's any flexibility to maybe slip this the previous week or the following week.
Is August 19th also a conflict?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the week, the only week we could get away.
Why don't we deal with that offline, and
Yep.
because we're gonna have to post anyway, and we'll
Okay.
figure it out.
I just wanted to bring it
No,
up
I
before
appreciate
we
that.
adjourn.
We'll deal with it sooner rather than later.
Yep.
We can deal with that offline. So thank you for bringing that up. All right, any other business? Okay, we already had our executive session. I don't feel like we need another one. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, everybody.